Welcome to the Hawks Nest stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I hope you're having a great start to your week, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in today. Today is going to be a show that's building a little bit upon a show that we had a couple of weeks ago, where we talked a little bit about the Kyle Hamilton role within this defense and what that would entail here as we've got the new personnel in here. Witherspoon filling that role last year, and now is it maybe Nick Emmanwori's turn to sort of take that role over, maybe push a little bit of at times Witherspoon out to the outside. Maybe it's matchup dependent. You get a big tight end or a big slot. You want to utilize the size and length of Nick Emmanwori. You'd punch him in there instead maybe at times, and this would help you on the outside corner position as well, which is just a wee bit lean as we enter into training camp here. So we're going to build on that today with a little bit of discussion about the three safety looks. And this is something that goes back with Mike Macdonald, back to the Kyle Hamilton days, partly born out of the fact that you had three quality safeties at that time, especially that final year, that you could really utilize. And so you had an opportunity at that point to really just try to get the best guys on the football field that you could, and specifically with Hamilton being able to move him all over the place. But I think also within this, we're seeing a driving force in Mike Macdonald that is driven by evolution and constantly pushing a ball forward. And I've said many times, this is very much the case, that Macdonald has not simply inherited a prior defense that he was taught and trained upon, and then now is just putting that back into place the exact same way he's been taught it. He's a guy who comes from a pedigree and a background of understanding defenses, and he wants to continue to push the ball forward, and not just in a one particular way here or one particular way there, but he's actually trying to make it happen really on all three levels of his defense, and you can feel him doing it. I've spoken to the fact that he's a guy that has gone very far away from the origins of this defense. Buddy Ryan, the bare fronts, stack the boxes, bring the blitz in full. He's kind of far from that. You were 22nd last year in blitzing. He's usually middle of the road there with Baltimore. He's deviated from that pathway of blitzing. What he's taken is, I want to stack the box up. I want to, oh, sorry, cat's freaking out here. I want to stack the box here. I want to be able to make you think I'm bringing the blitz, make everything within your heart believe that this is going to be the case, and then we're going to end up dropping out. A lot of those guys, you're going to end up more often than not with only a 4-man pressure package coming down your way. And so he developed it from there. I'm going to adjust off of that. He then adopted in the Vic Fangio cover 2 shell defenses and the embracing of changing your coverages and the coverage looks pre to post snap, even more so, quite frankly, because in a guy like Fangio, he's going to run 40% of the time out of the cover 2 shell. Whereas with Mike Macdonald, he'll go pretty significantly lower off that rate. I think we're at like 14%, 16% maybe was our cover actual post snap. So you show cover 2 and then you actually execute cover 2 post snap. I think you're only around in like that 16% range or something like that last year. So he's not a guy even like to Fangio. Again, we talk about this guy pushing a ball forward, doing it his own unique way. And so he's flipped up the coverages on the back front. He wants to stack the boxes with the linebackers. He wants to be able to flip them in and out between the Will and the Mike as far as the read being made by the offense. He'd love to get you to misidentify the wrong Mike on a given play on top of everything else, and then you just get sheer, utter confusion across the board for the offenses. And from Mike Macdonald's perspective, and my own as well on this, that is the pathway to getting offenses in an uncomfortable position, to be able to get down the road of just stopping an offense fully, not letting the bend but don't break, not getting bled slowly down the field, but you stop them and you stop them right for the jump. At least that's what you're trying to do here with all of these machinations and moving parts a little bit in how it goes. Based within this is the 3 safety look concept now that's coming up to bear, is that you're starting to feel even from last year with him, because we did use it last year. I'm going to show you some cut-ups of this. And I think that the reason comes from the 3 safety look is, again, more of the evolution continuing forward with Mike Macdonald. Yes, definitely that. But it also has to do with Mike Macdonald looking at the league and seeing what the league is doing, and then also understanding where he's got some slight vulnerabilities within his own scheme. And so I want to play you guys a cut here, which is going to, I think, bring this a little bit more into clarity for you guys. Nate Tice was recently talking a little bit about the tight end usage, the 2 tight end packages, his anticipation that the 2 tight end packages is going to go up more than ever before this year, and that we already saw the trend for it last year. You're going to see more of the trend of it this year. And he gives some of the reasons why. And I think that this is the first place we want to start at, to me, because this is a little bit of what then is pressing Mike Macdonald, I think, to start to open up to adopting these 3 safety looks. And I'm going to give you guys a good reason for that, but let's just play this audio. It's about a minute and a half or so, but I think he gives you some really, really good information within this clip. So So let's play this.
Tight ends are going to be a thing, and not just a guy or just like one guy getting used in a certain way. Groups of tight ends, the personnel groupings, tight end-centric offenses are going to be a thing this year. And I know tight ends have been the biggest thing, the next big thing since Nam, and I get that, or at least the first Gulf War. But I see just a big push of multi-tight end looks, and because I think the versatility has been unlocked, we're getting more tweeners, and receiving tight ends have more of a role now than they used to, because I think offensive play callers have become more creative. They've realized, we can do this with you and we can't do this with you, but we can find creative ways to make sure we only do the things we can do with you. But last year, 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, highest rate of 12 personnel on record since 2013, according to True Media. That's as far back as I can look it up. 22.1%. Only 3 seasons in the last decade have been above 20%. Plays with 2 or more tight ends on the field. So that's 13 personnel, 14 personnel, 22, all this stuff. 7.6% of football plays in the NFL last year featured 2 or more tight ends. That is the highest rate ever. And I can look this one back to 2002. We saw more tight ends on the field than we ever have last year in 2024. Everybody kept saying tight ends are coming, and it finally happened. We've all moved on, but tight ends are here. And there's a real reason for this. Defenses are lighter. Defenses are more comfortable being in sub, being in nickel, being in dime. So this is a way for offenses to get more beef on the field, but not just losing, and not just pure Mercedes Lewis types or Chris Manhertz types, more Trey McBrides, more guys that are in between that could be receivers as well as blockers, more balanced players.
So I'm sure you can initially, as you're hearing him talk about that, make some connections with Elijah Arroyo and Seattle targeting Arroyo. That's just the type of players he was talking about at the end. That is that mismatch kind of guy, is kind of that tweener type of guy. But the interesting notes within there from Nate that I thought and took away was the use of 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 14 personnel, 22 personnel. The higher that's gone up, and how it's very significant from where it's been in prior years, over that 20% mark. And this speaks to why you're making, I think, this adjustment to this 3 safety look as maybe a possible counter at times, not 24/7, but at times to those 3 safety looks. So let's unwind to this a little bit. We have 20 years ago, base packages basically still rule the day. You're going to be in base probably more often than not for the most part. And then we start to see the transition take place where offenses are living more with 3 wide receiver looks. Okay, you were in base, they go to 3 wide receiver. How do you now want to counter that? Okay, well, we'll just live in nickel. We'll live in nickel 70% of the time because you're going to read in 3 wide receiver sets, probably 3, that amount of percent of the time. So we'll just match it up evenly, Steven, like that. Okay, and that's what he talks about in going a little bit lighter. You're now not as good. You don't have the linebacker on the field. You're flopping a cornerback now for a linebacker. So that's a significant step backwards when it comes to defending the run and stopping the run. What have we seen over the last couple of years in the NFL come forward? The run game, right? So this is one transition to the next transition. Okay, so now what does the defense do to transition up against what the offense has done? And now they're going to these tight end looks. They're saying, okay, we're going to go less of the 3 wide receiver looks, and now we're going to go with the 2 tight end looks. What are you going to do defensively? Do you want to then trot out that nickel back, that undersized cornerback, that 5'9", 180-pound guy that's not going to tackle probably particularly well? Or do you want to bring out that safety? And we're going to bring a tight end out there that'll be like an Elijah Arroyo or like a Trey McBride was with the Arizona Cardinals, where if it isn't a cornerback you're lining me up against, if it's going to be a safety and a linebacker, I'm going to have maybe a mismatch here on this guy if I can do that. And so now offenses go to a little bit more of the 12 personnel to counter a little bit of so much of the heavy nickel looks. We're going to take your lighter defense, and we're just going to come at you with downhill runs, A, B gap, power runs, these type of things. This has been now their adjustment. So now we come to the adjustment from a Mike Macdonald type coach. Okay, now you're getting the 12 personnel. Now you have some susceptibility, like we've talked about in Mike Macdonald's defense, because of how wide you put the edges out versus how tight you have your defensive tackles at times. 3 tech, 1 tech, and then you've got your 2 wide nines, and there's some natural space that can exist in there. So Mike Macdonald now as a counter can say, okay, instead of us having Witherspoon, who's a really good tackler out there, no knock on Witherspoon, but instead of Witherspoon, we'll kick Witherspoon to the outside. We'll improve as a tackling team on the outside on certain downs there. And then we can bring in Emmanwori down in the box, and he can bring the coverage skills to be able to handle the tight end, but he also can bring the tackling and the ability to fill gaps and get in there and be a bigger guy down there to also be a part of the running game. So this is the tit for tat. This is the you do this, we do that. You do this, we do this. You do this, we do that. And it's the back and forth game, but it also shows a little bit to me of the intelligence of Mike Macdonald here as he's getting out ahead of this. He's not being reactionary to it. He's not saying, everything everyone's doing this stuff league wide. We're going to do this. He's being the trendsetter with it. I don't think three safety looks are proliferating the NFL right now. I don't see a lot of coaches using it to a high degree. And I think that Mike Macdonald would have even used it more than he used last year. And he started to use it a little bit more as the year went along, but he especially started to use it as the year went along when he started to have guys, into the spots where he wanted them, specifically getting Kobe Bryant into the strong safety role, which then let him use Rashawn Jenkins as essentially that Nick Emmanwori type player. But let me show you what I mean by this. As always, we want to take a look at the tape and kind of pair it up to what we're doing here on this side of it. So let me show you just a couple of cut-ups from last year and how they use these three safety looks, because there's kind of two main different ways that they do this. There is the traditional from the three safety looks like I have in the thumbnail, where you got three guys over the top, high side, right? And then you've got the three safety looks where you'll have the two safeties on the top side, and then that other safety comes down, and a lot of times he's in a uncovered kind of situation. You can call him a wheel linebacker, you can call him an uncovered slot, whatever you want. It's kind of semantics issue at this point. But let's show you a couple of these cut-ups so you guys get an understanding and a feel for how Mike has done this and why I think that this is going to come forward this year, because especially once you got Rashawn Jenkins and Kobe back on the field, you're able to do this a lot more. So first off, you've got here let me get the thing up, huh? Might help if I actually bring it up here. There we go. Okay, first up here, we've got Rashawn Jenkins, and I'm just going to show a couple of these and not belabor the point with it, but this is just to show you that this is how you're kind of using him, down and around the box. So on this play, you've actually taken out a Tyrese Knight. You're playing a little bit more to coverage here. You're not as much worried about the run game. This is where the extra safety helping you is going to help from that coverage aspect of it, being down by the box. And you can see that he's an extra defender down there. So off the line of scrimmage here, Jenkins isn't taking anybody. He climbs up on the zone. They tighten up everything else. This was a third down, I believe. Seahawks playing to the sticks. But you can see he's an extra defender down there. He gets to kind of freewheel a little bit. He does pick up the guy in coverage, but off this line of scrimmage, you got your corners picking up their men. Ernest Jones has got 83 coming through. He's in a zone, but he just gets to kind of play this uncovered a little bit, which is really part of the role. Again here, down in the box here, you've got him over on the, I guess to be strong side of the formation. Kind of as a forced defender off the edge there. So he's up over the tight end. Picture Nick Emmanwori in kind of this role, right up over the tight end. You still have your two safeties back. So it's a three safety look, but the safety comes into the box. And he's essentially, this is still with Tyrese Knight and you got Knight and you got Jones there. So this is essentially giving you like an extra linebacker. So you're treating this like a base defense with the 12 personnel that you're getting countered by Minnesota. This is the exact kind of reaction I'm talking about here, where you're going to, instead of having that corner out there as the slot corner and having to be that forced defender, you bop the corner to the outside, where you can see up here we've got Witherspoon high. And so he still can provide that tackling element and being vicious like he is as a guy in the run game. But now you get a little bit more size on that inside with that player there. Play the play here. Show you guys what happens. So he's your edge defender here. Rashawn Jenkins top of the screen. That's why he's not coming down and climbing down to make this play. His job is to make sure he keeps his outside shoulder clean here, force it to their linebackers, and your linebackers make the play. Gives you one more extra body down there who can be a good run defender versus a cornerback. Even Witherspoon, as good as a tackler as he is, getting a guy like Emmanwori will give you even more of that in what he brings to the table. This was an interesting play where prior to the snap, you had Ernest Jones up as the third safety between Kobe Bryant and Julian Love. So he was right between them. He walks it up now into his traditional role there as the Mike linebacker. But then you still have Rashawn Jenkins there to his side. Again, what are they doing here? They've got three tight ends to the Cardinals. The Seahawks are countering this with their three safety look. So not going with the extra corner here, looking to go with the extra safety. And this is going to be a play where you got this well scripted up to stop this. Rashawn Jenkins misses the tackle just a little bit here. But you can see Kyler's got nowhere to really go there. And what you do see on a lot of these snaps with these three safety looks is there's a lot of confusion for the quarterbacks. They're not really sure about what they're seeing or who's going where. Because you got a lot of flexibility in how you can utilize these safeties post-snap, including even dropping them into sort of cover two looks or even a cover three if you really want to get crazy with them. Have him just sprint to especially a guy with Emmanwori who's got his speed, have him sprint and be the single high safety post snap. Collapse everything else down around the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of room for creativity here for Mike Macdonald. So to my point on this, exactly what I'm talking about here, you start out with a single high. You've got, this ain't a 2 tight end package really. This is just a 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end look. So you have Rashawn Jenkins right here. He's down near the box. You're showing a semi-stacked front here to the Jets. You've got press look on the outside to the high side there of the formation. And we've got our single high Kobe Bryant back there, don't we? But then watch what they do post-snap with Jenkins. He rolls into cover 2. So it goes from basically a cover 1 look to cover 2, with Rashawn Jenkins going from playing the linebacker kind of role here to dropping all the way back into cover 2. I'm going to play the play so I can show you what happens with Rodgers, who gets completely confused here, and he gets sacked. Now, Leonard Williams grazes his face mask and gets the face mask penalty here, or else Williams would have 3 sacks on this day. But how does the stack get set up? Because you confuse the hell out of a guy who's been playing this sport for 20 years, basically, in Rodgers. Pressure's pretty quick there, but to show you guys the alt angle on this, watch Rodgers looking around here. Looks left, right, and then just kind of folds into it. As you can see, it's hard to tell here, but if you can kind of notice here, his eyes are going to where Jenkins is running. He's thinking the hole's going to be up there and Jenkins is going to be around the line of scrimmage post-snap. Instead, look at Jenkins running back. And Rodgers a little confused by it. Quarterbacks like to be used to seeing things over and over again. You like just looking at those 2 safeties high, and then you can make your determinations about what the corners are doing, press or off coverage. Then you can kind of, everything comes down now into inside, into your front 7. You can kind of figure out everything there. When you start moving that look for them that they're so used to playing and play out seeing, you just kind of throw off all of their comfortability to it. There's just something where now they're having to not be able to be in automatic mode, and they have to spend that one extra little beat to have to think about what they're seeing, which is just what you kind of see from this play with bringing Jenkins down in the box like that. But there's a lot of room for creativity with this, especially when you've got a kind of player like Emmanwori you're bringing in, who's got such a wide skill set and so much potential, he brings to the table. Here is going to be a stacked box. Rashawn Jenkins is going to be at the high side of your formation. You imagine Nick Emmanwori blitzing off the edge from the high side, just behind the wide 9. And keep in mind with Caleb looking at this, the wide 9 is usually as wide as you tend to look at with guys coming off the edge in the blitz. So you have Hall as your wide 9, and then you have Rashawn Jenkins behind him. And that's it. And so you also, on the other side of the field formation, of course, bottom side, you're threatening to blitz from this side. I mean, tell me Caleb Williams wasn't spinning here after this play. So I've got 3 safeties on the board. I've got 2 guys uncovered over here to the bottom side, which if I'm Caleb, that's where I think I should go post-snap. But then everything gets confused post-snap because you're dropping guys out. That's that thing, the iteration I was talking about where Buddy Ryan would have just sent the house. Everybody's coming. A Macdonald defense, you end up with only 4 guys coming. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody drops out of that stacked box, including Jenkins. But from Caleb's perspective, you think it's coming. This feels like it's coming. They're going to blitz. And then just again, he's the free guy, picks up DJ. You watch Caleb Williams' head. He wants to go to DJ here, but it's Jenkins clearing right through there that forces him back to the other throw late. And it's an overthrow because he was never intending to go to this backside route. Pressure kind of forces him over there to it. In my opinion, he wanted to get this over to DJ Moore. No. Cat's turned up today here. So 3 safety looks. Variety of different ways you can use this, but first and foremost, getting Jenkins down in the box. Again, against the Bears. Later in the year, you started to be able to use this because you had a little more help from Jenkins. Bryant solidified at the top. Again, here, Jenkins just kind of a free man. He's here to just kind of, and Emmanwori is going to love this role because a lot of times you don't have a blocker who is assigned to you. You're just getting to kind of be in a kind of a free zone area, so to speak, a little bit. And just a fly sweep to the outside. Nothing fancy on that play. I think you guys kind of get the point on this. I won't belabor it too much. Against the Niners, they tried in the first game, they worked 3 safety looks more than any time throughout the year in that first Niner game. And the reason that you did this was Kobe Bryant still wasn't out there at that point really rolling. You had Kayvon Wallace, you had Rayshawn Jenkins and Julian Love. So they tried with the dealing with the 12 personnel packages with the Niners to use a lot of this 12 personnel, or a lot of the 3 safety looks, specifically usually with Rayshawn Jenkins down inside the box. Some of this was also born out of the fact that you weren't really happy with what you're getting from Dodson and Baker at the inside linebacker position. And so you brought him in here to, give you a little bit more help, I'm sure, in there with the linebackers and these kind of 2 tight ends, 3 tight end looks that the Niners, of course, love to run, because they're going to be one of those teams at the forefront loving to do the 2 tight end kind of looks. So again, just down here by the line of scrimmage, a lot of this in this particular game, or even now, Mike Macdonald was kind of playing with this conceptually, I think. Let me show you just a couple of random snaps on this. Not that you're doing anything magnificent on this, but you're also going to have a much significantly more talented player in a guy like Emmanwori from what you had there with Rayshawn Jenkins. Rayshawn Jenkins can play in this sport. He's a functional safety, all that, but Emmanwori is going to have a lot more ability in what he brings. So you're looking to bring a little more beef with the safety. You want to deal with that with the 2 tight end looks here. You have him locked in on Debo. Debo gets the ball here out of the fly sweep. He's got him all day long. Debo's not getting it. But the benefit of this, of taking a guy like Jenkins, who can follow a Debo Samuel, who's used to be at least really lethal with the ball in his hands, and how much that guy can break a tackle of a cornerback, and almost any cornerback in the league, if he gets the ball, versus if I've got a safety trailing him, is that safety going to be able to tackle him one-on-one? Will a Nick Emmanwori be able to bring down a Debo Samuel? Or I guess, to put it to you differently, would you trust a Nick Emmanwori or a Justin Coleman from a couple of years ago, or an Ugo Amadi, who we had rocking out a slot for 1 year? Who do you trust more in those kind of situations to make that tackle on a fly sweep with a guy like Debo Samuel? Everybody else can notice here, a lot of times you run a fly sweep, you got the linebackers stepping wrong. They'll take a false step with the receiver who's running the fly sweep. Look at the 2 inside linebackers of the Hawks, Dodson and Baker. They're not taking the false step. They're not taking the step away, which would have then taken them away from the running back here to be able to make the tackle where they make it. They're right on the spot there to make the tackle. But that's because you have Jenkins following Debo the whole way. Always the inside linebackers will take the false lateral step with the receiver when they're coming across the formation more often than not. But you don't here because you have Jenkins there. So it frees you up in a variety of ways here, having this 3 safety look and what you can do with it. A couple more of these I'll just show, and then I'll bounce to a few of the pure 3 safety looks I want to show you. So here's where you're hoping you get that beef. Again, 2 tight end looks here from the Niners. They live in this kind of situation. You bring a lot of guys near the box. You love seeing that. They're going to stack it up. You stack it up. You got a single high, condensed formation from the Niners. Jenkins gets blocked a bit here, but he gets a hat on a hat. You got bodies down there, and Jaron Reed makes a nice play. Get down the field there. Just gives you one more kind of forced defender. Guy that's not going to go light against the run. Here we go here. High side of the formation. 2 tight end look. Well, yeah, kind of it's not a 2 tight end look. It's tight end and I guess we got 10 personnel or whatever. 21 personnel. Is you got your fullback on the field. So even on this, you're countering this with trying to get into kind of a base look, right? Imagine Jenkins is kind of your linebacker of the old school days. That's how you're kind of doing it, right? Just looks just like base. Give you a little bit of a heavier look here up front. Helps you to stop the run. See how he kind of forces it up? He's the forced defender there. He takes the fullback on. A lot different that you're going to see a safety take this on than a cornerback in this situation. But a lot of teams in recent years have drifted to playing more of that 3 slot, nickel look. And then you are rocking that undersized cornerback out on that side. Last one here, and then I'm going to show you some of the 3 safety look ones here. So again, you guys will get the point on this. Down in the box, gets to play it like a linebacker. Same thing as the last play. 1 tight end, 1 fullback. So you just match that with a little bit of the heavier formation here. And it helps to stop the run. Niner team has attacked us in this run game in the past, and we've been in nickel situations where they've been able to gash us. Coach Carroll was not as much a guy about bringing in that extra safety down there. He would have kept it more traditional in that way. So this works. You can see there's some effectiveness. This was a game with the Niners where you certainly had some big plays given up. Some of it was the offense putting the defense in some precarious positions. It wasn't the greatest day for you defensively speaking, but you had some stops in there too. And some of it was the defense just being put in bad situations. But in my opinion, this is something that Mike Macdonald's going to be able to carry forward here with the Niners into this year. More of these kind of 3 safety looks with Emmanwori to really stop the Niners in the run game, turn them one-dimensional, force Brock Purdy to have to throw the ball, force them to have to pass protect a lot of the time. It's one of the things we've struggled with the Shanahan offenses and why we haven't been able to get to them is that we just can't first stop that run. They do have that to really go back and lean on, and so that then all the passing game works beyond it because you're so busy trying to stop the run. You're so focused on trying to get that done because it's such a struggle for you that it ends up opening up things in the passing game. Shotgun here, 3 wide receiver looks. Seattle still ends up here going with the 3 safety look here. And you're doing this as well in this game because you were down, I think, Tariq Woolen in this game. So Witherspoon was having to play more outside. You did some of this by necessity. But again, the run game, it's Jaron Reed again, I think. Jaron making another really nice play in there. But you have another force defender in there in Jenkins. He's your outside edge guy coming in here. He's got the outside shoulder. So he doesn't have to come in and make the play. Just got to give you that extra body down there to condense things, stack things up. Just stack it up. So this is one where this worked again. 3 safety look. This worked post snap. But Jenkins loses his man eventually here because he ends up getting his eyes caught too much looking in the backfield. Had to chop this up into kind of 2 plays, but this last one I promise I'll show you. I want to show you a few of these guys because this kind of gets me hyped, man. I love this stuff. This pushing the ball forward, this being at the forefront of things. I really like that we've got a defensive coach that's in this mode. It's not a gambler. He's not Kenny Rogers out there, okay? But you can see this confuses Purdy off the jump. That 3rd safety, he's not sure. He's looking to the high side here. Figure out what he was seeing to the high side. Seattle doesn't do anything really crazy there. They're just sitting on the short route. Really, it's on a 3rd down short route. So he just doesn't have anywhere to go. He ends up coming back around to Jenkins guy, though, here. If you watch here, we got Jenkins. We got Jenkins right here, mid-coverage. He's got him covered here well. Purdy's breaking the pocket over here, though. He's going to throw it to this guy. You can see he just gets caught flat-footed here. But you had him on this play. If he had just kind of nestled up there instead of kind of drifting, and you had this covered up. I mentioned 3 high looks. A lot of times you would use this in sort of 3rd and long situations. So this is a 3rd and 13 situation. But here you're going to see what I'm talking about as far as just pure, I'd call this pure 3 safety looks. You're not using them like a linebacker. You're using the 3 safety looks like 3 safeties. So right there, you got them across the board, don't we? And so it's 3rd and 13. And you're doing this on 3rd and long because a lot of times teams will kind of, if they're trying to go for that 3rd down on 3rd and 13, you got a guy like Stafford with a strong arm. He's going to try to find and hit that hole shot if he can. And if you're in a cover 2, you're probably going to have some hole shots right around the seams in the middle of the field. You know, if you're going to cover 3, maybe you can get some over routes to the sticks at that point. But if you're rocking 3 safeties across the board, you can take away both the cover 2 look, and you can also then have essentially that 3rd safety in the middle of the field to remove the seams, which would be the vulnerability within the cover 2, especially if you're not dropping your inside linebacker to a ton of depth, which is what they used to do with cover 2. Here you're blitzing Jones, you're speeding up the clock of Stafford. So the other part that I love with this is they're marrying up what they do on the back end of the front. And what I mean by that is, 3rd and 13, a lot of times you need to have the pass protection hold up for a certain amount of time to be able to then get to those routes to the sticks to be able to make the first down. If you blitz and you create pressure before the quarterback can let those routes get to the sticks, they never even have a chance to do it. But having the 3 safety look back there means that if he tries to throw this fast to a spot, to the sticks, you got safeties in place that can take that away. And you can see that you can do so many different things here with the safety looks, those three guys at the safety position post-snap. Because here you've got Love goes to cover 3. Well, cover 1 is what this basically comes. So he goes from the 3 safety look to Julian Love goes cover 1. Then your 2 other safeties just squat on the routes at the sticks. Try to predict that if you're Stafford, which guy's going what post-snap. Very, very hard to predict. I'd expect them to be able to use a lot of this too, especially where they can get teams into third and long. Another one against the Cardinals here, 3rd and 13. Another one here that's long. You can see that they got to get pretty far to get to the sticks here. 3 safety look over the top. Kyler drops back. Julian Love again goes back into that cover. It's more of a cover. Another maybe cover 1. I don't think they're going cover 3 there. The Cardinals players cut off their routes a little bit, so it's hard to see because you might be just playing man match here. Cover 3 man match might be what they're doing. But you see Julian Love almost comes over and makes an interception. And if you can see with Kyler Murray, when he drops back, he's just not sure about where to go. There's a lot of pressure. Leonard Williams flying past him there in the backfield. But you can see he's also not really too sure to go. And then Love almost gets the interception, makes a hell of a play at the end of this. We saw before Julian Love was not the inside guy going to cover 1. He was one of the guys on the outside at the safety position of those 3 that went to cover 1. Here he does it from the middle slot. Unpredictability. Wait, I saw him on tape against this team doing it here, but now they're going to do it with this guy going back there. It's still Love, who's the guy who's your deep dropper, but he's doing it from the different position of the other one. So if I'm trying to tell off tape and look at indicators off tape, I can't really say that. I think Julian will be the guy that ends up deep. But even that, you'll be pretty sure about it. Another 3rd and forever here from the Bears. 3-man front. You're going to drop everybody into coverage. You've got 3 safeties back again here. Caleb's going to just take the check down. Part of what it does as well is it starts to force the quarterback to go, look, why am I even going to try this deep? I've got all those guys back there. I'm just going to take my check down and call it a day on this one. Another part of the defense, we talked about this last week, where Mike Macdonald, with a lot of the stack boxes and stuff, simulated pressures. Also here, I would say with this cover 3 look, a lot of times as a defensive coach, you can force an offense to go where you want them to go by a certain look like this. I don't think we're going to be able to get to the sticks. Too many guys in coverage there. Just take the drag. Another 3rd and long here for the Cardinals. Kyler drops back. You're bringing the pressure. Again, marrying the double A gap pressure. So Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, right here in the A gap, living in the A gap, 6 guys at the line of scrimmage. You got your 3 safety look deep. So you're both here getting the best of both worlds, where you're getting to blitz and you've got the protection against the deep ball here. Your corners are in off coverage. So if he wants to try to throw this over the top on a 9 route to either receiver, your corners are going to be there. They're going to be stacked on top of him. The throw's not going to be there. You give this offense nowhere to go. The only place he could go here, right here if he wants, which is going to be his guy right here, tight end right there, who's on a stop route. He's about to sit down right there at the 47-yard line. Problem is, though, issue is, you can see right over here, we've got the first down marker. That means he's going to be 3-4 yards in front of the first down marker. Kyler here would like to try to get this to the sticks, but then the blitz comes too fast for him to make any determinations. What I love here too about this play, just as another note that has nothing to do with safety looks, watch Jaron Reed and watch Leonard Williams on this play. Macdonald played Kyler Murray so good last year in against the scrambling and the running ability. Leonard Williams and Jaron Reed here are simply getting upfield. They are not rushing the passer here. They are getting upfield. Straight line it, go right up the field. Both of you take that straight right route because we've got the double A gap pressure that's coming as a blitz. So you're going to go up around him. You're going to give him no escape out the back or either side of the pocket. The only place he's going to have to go is into the front of the pocket. We got the 3 safety look on the backside to take away anything to the sticks. Best of both worlds. But also Jaron Reed and Leonard Williams fitting to their role on this defense and this play. Being good soldiers. PFF would mark this play as maybe a negative for Leonard Williams or Jaron Reed, that you didn't create the actual pressure, but they're doing exactly what they were told to do on this play, which is essentially slow collapse the pocket and around Murray and don't give him any escape routes to use his legs and be dynamic like he can be. Really cool play from a variety of different areas. This is that play I was telling you guys about earlier on this, where you got Leonard Williams. He starts as your 3 safety look from the top of this, slowly then coming down. Actually, that's your safety, sorry. No, because Leonard Williams is already there. I think that's another safety there. So we got a corner there, double A gap pressure. Kind of some ways you can do it too. Start out there, come down. Let's see if it confuses Darnold. Yep. And the blitz actually gets home there. It's Devin Witherspoon there actually on the middle who climbs up in the A gap. How about Devin blitzing from the A gap? I'm sorry, I pumped. Starts out as the third high safety though with Witherspoon. What are you going to do there? You get Witherspoon starting out as your third safety between the two. Then he comes down into the A gap just prior to the snap. I mean, tell me that this doesn't start confusing quarterbacks. Wait, there's slot corners in the middle of the A gap, but he started out as a safety prior to the snap. I'd probably be confused too. I'd probably be over there going, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I got no idea. So did you use this stuff to a high degree last year? Was this something that was at a huge rate? No. But it's also something where the door opens up so much wider for this year's use to be had. Partly because of, like Mike Tice said, the use of 2 tight end looks, 3 tight end looks at fullbacks, maybe making more of a return to the football field. This drives you back to wanting to go back to base concepts defensively speaking. 4 down linemen, 3 linebacker, 2 safeties. It drives you to want to do that. But you can't exactly do that because you don't really have the linebacker talent to do that anymore for that third linebacker to be on the field. And a lot of teams, they've got only 2 real decent guys and then not else much beyond that. But if you can have a real dynamic safety who's got a real multi-dimensional skill set that can do a variety of different things, now I can get back into more of the base packages to counter the 2 tight end sets. And specifically, if I've got those 2 tight end teams that are really good with the run blocking element and then they can bring out the beef and really go after you, now having that safety out there gives me a really good way to counter it. I also have, like I showed you on those 3 safety looks, where I get you into a 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, down in distance where I know you're probably going to be passing it now at this point. I can bring the guy out there in those true 3 safety looks on the top side, on the outside out there. And now, right from the start of the snap, I'm just going to be taking away that ability for you to think you're going to be able to get to the sticks with a throw. The ball, they got too many guys sitting at the sticks. That's not going to happen. Then Macdonald pairs that, of course, with some of these stack boxes and even pressure looks that he's bringing to the front side of it. So now he's speeding up the quarterback's clock even more so at that point. So to me, this all lends together where Seattle is on the forefront of this one a little bit about where the league is going, not where it's been at, not where it was 3 years ago. Where is it going over the next 2 to 3 years? How can you be ahead of that curve so you can fully take advantage of that? Like somebody that's in the stocks, that's anticipating a stock that's about to go to the moon. It's kind of the same type of thing that I think Macdonald's doing here with this defense, and I love it conceptually. I love the unpredictability because this is the place that we have been leaving so much meat on the table over the last few years prior to Macdonald's arrival, where when you don't make it confusing, when you make it simplistic, when you let the quarterbacks be able to see it like they always see it, and they can just go into automatic mode, and now they get into rhythm, and now once they're in rhythm, they get really hard to knock out of rhythm, versus we're going to keep them out of rhythm right from the jump. We're going to make that the goal to try to do. We're going to stop offenses, not allow them to slowly bleed us to death. That is the point. That is the hope within this defense. Whether you accomplish it or not, we'll see this upcoming season. But that is the intended goal of what this defense wants to try to accomplish. And Mike Macdonald continues to push this ball forward. And you never know. Maybe 3 safety looks now maybe become the next iteration evolving of what we see in the NFL. I'm not saying I think it's going to go this way, but it wouldn't shock me as well. We went from base to more nickel, and maybe now we would go from more nickel to 3 safety looks because now you're trying to counter back to get that instead of that light. Remember with slot cornerbacks, they tend to be a little bit undersized, light, not the best of tacklers. They're there to be able to cover the real quick, sudden guys like your Amon St. Brown types. So now you then make the transition to going with a little bit of a bigger safety to be able to counter that and have an ability to still tackle. Whereas with a guy like Emmanwori, still maybe he'll be fleet of foot enough to stay with the receiver, to still be able to bring the coverage ability of that cornerback, but then also be able to bring the tackling and not let you become vulnerable when teams want to drive into those kind of 2 tight end looks and leave you into a little bit of that no man's land as far as defensively having the right personnel out there to match up against it. Especially as, like Nate said too, these tight ends are coming in so many sizes and packages and shapes and forms and varieties that they're getting hard to cover because they're so unique and different. It's got 6'4", 6'5", like Arroyo, for instance, that runs a 4.5 340, and it's got a good size and length. In that it's hard. You don't have a lot of guys that can match up on your defense to that kind of player. You might have a guy that's fast like a cornerback, but that doesn't have the length. You might have a big guy, but he can't really run with the guy. So getting a guy like Emmanwori is going to be maybe mighty helpful here in what he brings on that table. You guys let me know, though. Do you think the three safety looks are going to be part of the new hotness and that this is the direction of things where the NFL is going? Do you think Mike's going to lean a little bit more into this? I certainly do think that there's a lot of room here to get Emmanwori out there as that essentially extra linebacker on the field and then just kick Witherspoon to outside corner, because the benefit then becomes that you don't lose anything as a tackler from where Witherspoon was in his role, and then Witherspoon can be a big improvement as a tackler, as a run defender, then from the outside corner role for a guy like Josh Jobe, who's not horrible in that way, but just Witherspoon's better, into that kind of role. You guys let me know. I thank you guys for watching today. If you could for me, please hit that like button. As you know, I do really, really, really appreciate it. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $2 donation, bro. It's great to see you in the house as well. Having both Spoon and Emmanwori playing is scary. It is. And we're going to be doing, of course, a video on Witherspoon this week. And on Friday, we're going to be looking at Witherspoon's last year and getting a little bit of a view of him because, he's a guy that doesn't always have, I think, as much of the sparkling reputation among Seahawks fans as I think he kind of should, because there's a little bit of still, I think, the daydreaming of a Jalen Carter and what could have been with that, but also a little bit of a struggle to understand really the full effect of what Witherspoon brings to the field, because he is a demon on the field. I'm going through putting cut-ups together of Witherspoon. I've been looking at the three safety looks, and just over and over again, when you watch the Seattle Seahawks tape defensively on the All-22 especially, and I can see the whole field, Witherspoon is that guy that is flying every which way but loose. Witherspoon is the guy that's operating with no fear, that's throwing his body around, that's getting in on the play, that's instinctually on it, that's hustling his ass off play after play after play. He has become my favorite player on this team because of how hard he plays as much as anything else. He's a talented kid. He's got a lot of ability. He's still coming along to really tap into all that ability. Mike Macdonald's still trying to figure out how to utilize him in the right ways. But he can do so many things on the football field, from playing outside corner to playing slot. He even had a couple of safety snaps last year. I mean, I showed that one cut up at the end there, Thomas, where he's essentially your other linebacker next to Jones in the double A gap mug pressure look. I mean, they're even comfortable enough to move him in there, and he created pressure on the play. So he is fantastic, but he's also a guy that can be used in a lot of different ways. And Emmanwori used in a lot of different ways. And we come back to what is Macdonald trying to do with this defense? Rather than you as an offense looking at this guy going, he fits to that role prior to the snap, for instance, middle linebacker, he'll be here. My two safeties here, they'll be kind of in that general area. My outside corners, they're going to either be press or off in zone. I've got a good understanding and establishment of where guys are going. But if I have a guy in Witherspoon who can start as a slot corner and become a safety, if I have a Nick Emmanwori who can start as a linebacker, a will linebacker, and then become safety or even slide into corner on the outside, kind of playing a zone to that side, and then I have a variety of guys on a defense that can do those things. Julian Love has slot corner background, played outside corner at Notre Dame coming out of college, has played strong safety, has played free safety. Kobe Bryant started out as an outside corner out at Cincinnati when we drafted him. We moved him into slot. Now he's found a home here at strong safety. So many players you have that have moved into a variety of different areas and have be able to play those positions well, play those different roles well, because then you can show offenses across the board, player in, play out defensively. This player looks like he's doing that. That player looks like he's doing this pre-snap. These guys on the safety look like they're doing this pre-snap. And then post-snap, as many moving parts that can change across the board of that, especially when it comes to the passing game and quarterbacks trying to attack coverages, the more that those guys change into different things than they normally would, the bigger the confusion is there for the quarterbacks. And the more the benefit is to the defense, the bigger the chance for them to create then a big play through that confusion. And so this is where Macdonald's going, and it's very exciting to see because it's very hard for quarterbacks. You just don't know what you're seeing prior to the snap. Snap in and snap out, you don't know what you're going to get. But prior to the snap versus post-snap, you have no idea from the fronts to the linebackers to the safeties to the corners exactly what they're going to do. Makes it fun. Thank you, though, Thomas. It's gonna be exciting. Indeed, we got news today that Frank Ragnow, the Lions, one of the best centers in the sport, is suddenly retired. He's been dealing with some very major injuries there over the last couple of years. And so Ragnow's going to call it quits. It does sound like Ratledge will probably be their guy that they try to maybe kick in there into center now. But that's a big blow for a Lions team. That's, lost some things this offseason. They're still hoping that Hutchinson's going to be ready to come back. But yeah. Yeah, I think with Thomas Ragnow's retirement's injury based. I don't think it's like monetarily based. I think he's one of the higher paid centers there for Detroit. It just comes down to, I think that body was he was dealing with a variety of injuries. Another guy that's, I think, played through those injuries through the years, which those tough guys, it's cool when you do that, but there's also a bit of a price to be paid when you play through those injuries, and that the ability for it to heal right and heal well is not always there on that side of it. Erickson says that double A gap pressure is what Spoon should do once a game. I am with you 100%, man. Just imagine as a quarterback, you're trying to Witherspoon starts out as the middle safety of your three safety look, but then he's going to end up as your double A gap pressure with Ernest Jones. And then you've got the press coverage. This is where you're preparing everything together. Because you might have done this with a Coach Carroll, but then you might have had off coverage with your corners. I show you press coverage. Now you got six men coming here. From Darnold's standpoint, you're making me uncomfortable now. You got the routes pressed. You're not giving me anything clear with the hot route read. You might drop out of it with Witherspoon. He can cover all across the field post snap. Yeah, I'd love to see more of those looks. And look, he gets home. He forces Darnold to throw the incompletion here. Darnold just dirts it. You're technically, I guess, having Jones and Knight here. So it's almost like a tri-mug pressure. You got the double A gap. This would be triple A gap pressure here. Mike's just coming up with new stuff now. He's just having fun with it now. Yeah, Jordan, you're right on this. I don't see Ragnow coming up. Maybe he comes out of retirement to come back for Detroit, but this is injury based. I think he had torn pec or torn bicep, or he's had a variety of stuff. Thomas says, I know, but a part of why Ragnow retired is money. He wanted an extension based off what I've read. It's unlikely, I know. Oh, you never know with these. I mean, you're right to think about if it is true that's, and I hadn't been studying the situation, but you're right. If it is about monetarily reasoning and not injury, and that he's just kind of telling people it's injury when it's actually something else, that could eventually open the door for that. So yeah, he's not sitting on a ton of money. He's got $14 million cap hit this upcoming season, $9 million base salary. Yeah. He has no real guaranteed money in 25 or 26. So maybe a bit of a part of this. Definitely maybe a bit of a part of it. He signed this. This was an extension. So he has signed it a while ago. Could be a part of this. Could be a part of it. There's something maybe to that. Seth says Witherspoon's all over the field, stands out big time. He does. People want the stats, and they want to be able to look at a player and say he's got interceptions and tackles and this and da. And he is the definition of a player that you've got to turn on the 22 tape and watch him. You've got to just not look at the stats on this kind of guy. You got to watch him play in and play out, fly around the field, and what he's bringing to the table and how he's hustling and how he's saving the day so very often. I'm going to show you guys a half dozen plays on Friday of Witherspoon, just with the hustle, just with the, oh my God, if he doesn't come all the way back across this field on this play to make this game-saving tackle like he did in the Patriots game, we lose that game. Is there a stat that tracks that? Is there something that shows what that guy's done that puts that in great display? No, there's not. But you turn on the tape with Witherspoon, Seth, and man, just over and over again, he's flying to the spot. He's given everything he's got. You give me 11 guys on defense with Witherspoon's mentality, man, and that's a dynasty team that you're going to be putting together. Very, very few guys operate like this guy does. Thomas says Niners are going to have a problem with the Seattle's defense. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I can see it, man. I think we're going to take that running game away from them. And that's where it really does begin. Luke says, I like our defense. Can't wait to see the progression from last year. Me, the brute Luke, definitely expecting that thing to be improved. Ryan White says, it's funny how much you geek out about this stuff. I do. I love looking at this tape. And, really, Ryan, it comes out of, and this is not to cast aspersions at Coach Carroll. I wish him nothing but the best with the Raiders. I hope that he has shown some signs both offensively with the Chip Kelly hire and defensively with Graham coming in there that, he's going to maybe do some more updating here with his defense on that, Ryan. And I hope he does, because I'd love to see Coach Carroll have great success there with the Raiders. But I got to say, Ryan, that it was so hard through the years in breaking down this defense. And it was kind of just like you threw your pencil away and you tossed out your notepad when you're watching the Coach Carroll defenses, because it's like cover three off coverage, cover three off coverage, cover two, back to the cover three off coverage, cover two, back to the cover three off coverage, four-man front, four-man front, four-man front, four-man front. Snap after snap after snap. You were showing offenses the exact same thing. You were disguising nothing pre to post snap. You weren't changing your coverages. You were staying in the general same coverage over and over again. For years, we were in cover three for like 95% of the time. You adjusted a bit off of that, but even in Carroll's final year here, you're still rocking at 50% of your snaps. 50% of the time as a quarterback. I could drop back and know that half the time you were going to be in cover three in Coach Carroll's final year, and that was with him making the biggest adjustment away from other coverages. It's too predictable. It's too easy. Now to get a coach for me, Ryan, that's on this other end of the scale, that's operating from the literally the other almost extreme end of the scale, is such a breath of fresh air. Because I think it's what you have to do. This sport has got more parity than any other sport in the book, meaning that every team's got their chance. Like they say, any given Sunday. You don't go in basketball and you go any given Tuesday. No, because there's some teams that are going to get the floor wiped with them no matter what. They just don't have it. Not this year. We've got to trust the process. We're 3 years out. In football, anybody can beat you every week. The difference between the champion and the bottom of the barrel is so much closer than any sport. And so you have to have a utilization of every advantage that's out there to grab. You can do it through scheme, if you can do it through coverages, if you can do it through fronts, if you can do it through confusion. Yes. Utilize all of those. And I feel like a little bit in our prior defense, it was sort of like, we'll use that, but we'll leave the rest of those on the table. We don't need all that stuff. I just need the hammer. Just give me the hammer. Every offense will be a nail for us. Just give me that hammer. And with Macdonald, he's like, no, I went down, I got a whole layer. Look at all these tools I got. I got a tool for everything. Got my Murphy wrench. I got my power saw, got my power drill, he's over there with it all. So it's like, I'm totally geeked out on this. I totally geek out on this because it's just such a cool breath of fresh air from where we were. And it really does give me a lot of confidence that this team in the future is going to get there, that's going to get to the right place, because this is what you've got to do. Take advantage of every advantage that's there to take. Can spend all the money that you can spend at times. Know when to go for it. Make those aggressive trades at the right time. Have the coaching staff that's trying to utilize every advantage they can in the book on both sides of the ball. Don't just be driven by one side of the ball to carry everything with it. Make sure offensively you're doing those things that you can to take advantage of those advantages as well. And of course, with the Kubiak system, we talk about this 12 personnel and where Nate said this is going. Well, like I mentioned with Arroyo and having AJ Barner here and Noah Fant still on the roster, you're really doubling down on the tight ends here a little bit. You are leaning back into this saying, hey, yeah, we're going to lean into this trend. We're going to be at the forefront of this offensively as well. So it is something I'll definitely geek out about. And part of it was just out of that frustration at the end there was seeing how the simplicity of our designs was causing so many things to run amok defensively because offenses could just basically solve you. They weren't solving your players necessarily. They were solving your scheme. And that was hard to watch because you felt like at times just the players could do nothing about it then. They were going to get dragged under the waters even if they paddled their ass off. It just wasn't going to make a difference. Thomas says that play against Kyler Murray, which caused the pick six, shows how talented he is. Indeed. Because he first, of course, on the play plays the inside. He first on the play plays the run. It's a read option, right? So he first takes the read option away, make sure he's on that, and then he's able to reverse course and get on his horse to catch up to a guy like Kyler Murray with his legs to force the pressure, to force Kyler to throw the ball too fast and not see what he's throwing, and then just put it right in Kobe Bryant's arms, and Bryant comes back and gets the pick six. But then even being Witherspoon on that play, and this is the play we're going to show on Friday, even being Witherspoon on that play, not only does he take away the run, not only does he force the pressure on Kyler Murray, but then he comes back down and lays the key block for Kobe Bryant on the play, which springs Kobe Bryant to get the pick six. None of those three things he did on that play is stat trackable. There's not one stat that's going to track any of those three things outside of maybe pressure, which is cool that he got the pressure on Murray, but he did a lot of things to make all that happen. And that's one man making that go on that play all the way through. So yeah, that was probably his best play of the year, but it's also a little bit in part and parcel what you get with Witherspoon playing and play out. Banana the Bad Guy Williams, would you rather the Hawks get Jalen Ramsey or Trey Hendrickson? I would rather be in Jalen Ramsey camp on this one. I go get Jalen Ramsey. I don't have to give him a contract extension. He's on a 2-year deal, which is not that expensive over the next 2 years if he can play anywhere around where he's been at in recent history. With Trey Hendrickson, I'm going to have to break the bank for the guy. I'm going to have to give him $30+ million a year for a guy in his early 30s. And I have an issue with doing that. I really do. Because number one, I think that's a little bit too much money for a guy that age. Number two, I'm not always that sure with Trey Hendrickson when I watch the Bengals. I'm not always that sure with him that he's really interested in playing the run. And I don't think you're going to get him much more interested in playing the run after you give him $30 million a year. I think guys will, from a pass rush standpoint, as they get in their early 30s, start to do this a little bit where you lose a little bit maybe of your speed. You maybe lose just a little bit of strength, maybe, a little bit of explosive strength. And so now you're starting to pick your spots. Now you're starting to try to, game the system a little bit rather than just playing it straight up like you once used to do. And he kind of feels like he might be getting to the edge of doing that. You're paying a little bit for past performance at that point. And so I would go that route instead. I'm not as much in on Hendrickson. I'm pretty out on that deal, but I wouldn't hate, he would be definitely an improvement of a pass rusher beyond anything you have in house. He's going to be much better at creating pressures and sacks and all that than anything you got by far. So he will give you that initially. But the cost is just going to be so much. You're giving up probably a second-round pick. You're going to then pay $30 million a year. That just gets you to the spot where you're like, I can't go that far with it. So we got a lot of young guys in the line. Hope they can step up. Bryce Cable-Dew is a guy I have my eye on. He's got some potential, man. Bryce has definitely got some potential in there, and I'm not sleeping on him either. He's got the ability to kick inside the other left guard, and tell you, it wouldn't completely blow me away if we got to game one and we came to find Zabel center and Cable-Dew at left guard. It wouldn't, I'm not predicting it, but I'm just saying it wouldn't completely blow me away. Misfit says Rasul Douglas can play nickel. Cheap, allows Boone to play outside like we mostly want. I think Douglas makes a lot of sense, Misfit. They're definitely thinking about it. They've kicked the tires on a couple of these corners. And you're right, Douglas doesn't have necessarily the ego of maybe a Ramsey, but Ramsey is a significantly better player. Reynolds says this Kubiak offense is predicated on running the ball. If we can't run the ball, this offense is going to suck. Is the O-line good enough to make this work? That's the question. That is the question, Metal. And that's the big challenge that Kubiak has in front of him this upcoming season. and that he's really being asked to shoulder a lot of this burden. They got him Gray's able, but you didn't do a lot beyond that. You said, we just want you to develop the talent we have in-house. We believe in the talent we have in-house. Go get it done, Cougs. So hopefully he can do it. They have not made this necessarily an easy job for him. The one good part about this, I will say, Metal, is that you look at Kubiak last year. He goes to a Saints team. He's got a rookie right tackle. He's got a guy in Trevor Penning that's not really come along much. He's got some good parts on that offensive line aside from that, but he gets that whole offensive line from day one playing really well. And he gets everybody on that offensive line to have their career best season. Everybody on that line that played, from starters to backups, at least by a PFF ranking, if you want to use that, had essentially their best year last year under his watch. And so instantaneous results, instantaneous improvement from Kubiak last year with the Saints. Doesn't guarantee it'll be here with it, but it maybe gives you a little bit of a little better hope that the possibility exists that it could happen. Could happen. Thomas says, I keep coming to why not both? The problem is Seattle needs to ask themselves that are they two solid players away from being a contender, especially with offense that is not fully built yet. Yeah, that's the part for me that'd be a bit hard with it. I think that Ramsey's not going to cost the draft capital that Hendrickson costs, but could it be a thing where you give up cumulatively second and third round picks for next year's draft? And then if you're making those moves, are you really sure at that point that you as a team are ready to be that championship contender with these two additions? You might be ready. It certainly is a very aggressive move, but I think that I think I'd much rather be landing at a place where if I'm going to make those two major moves, that I've got a lot more solidity about knowing where my team is exactly at and not doing as much kind of predictiveness to it. Because I think we have done that at times in recent years, Thomas, where we've made that kind of prediction of it and grabbing some of those guys, and you haven't exactly been in that place to do it. So I would probably be hesitant of going both with that one myself. It's part of why I like the Ramsey thing is that you can make that move and it's not you really sacrificing a ton. The draft capital is not going to be great. It's a huge improvement over the position you have in house. You have him under contract for 2 years, relatively cheap. Not cheap, but not expensive. And I'd lean to that. That's where I'd kind of lean on that a little more. Seth says, I hope we see a lot more stunts and simulated pressures this season. Load the box and confuse opposing offenses. We'll be doing a show this week, Seth. Great point to kind of tease this one. We'll be doing a show this week about stopping the run. And that this is really going to be a big driving force this year for your Seahawks team and the defense specifically, partly because it's a little bit of where you have, with Mike Macdonald's defense, you can get after them a little bit and run the ball, but partly also because this is where the NFL is going to running the ball now over the last couple of years, and that they're driving further and further to this and making this a little bit more of a forefront part of the game. So that's also why. But then you bring up another reason why it's also very important in stopping the run. And this is going to be the third kind of rung of what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday's show, I believe, which is that when you stop the run on first and second down, you now give yourself the opportunity to unleash the simulated pressures, stack boxes, but most especially the blitzes. I think that when you get into more of a 3rd and 5 situation or 3rd and 4, you've given up a 4-yard run, you have a 3-yard run, they're into 3rd and short situations. Watching the tape with Macdonald last year, he's not a guy that tends to want to run the stack boxes and simulated pressures when you get to like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Because you can imagine if you got a AA gap pressure on a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, you got a running back here, you bring the blitz, the running back goes out in the flat, your corners drop into off coverage, you have the receivers run them off and like just run a 9, go run right up the field. Now that throw to the flat's wide open, they can hit it and go get their 3, 4, 5 yards and get an easy conversion at that point. So you really, as much as anything in watching Macdonald, he doesn't want to run those until he gets into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12s. Now he will unleash hell on you if he can get there. But this is why the key comes down to stopping the run on early downs. Teams are going to run more on early downs than ever before. You stop those run downs, you get them to a 1-yard gain, a 2-yard gain. Now they're in the 3rd and 7s. Now the stack boxes come out, or like you're talking about, the simulated pressures, the stunts, the loops, those can come back into effect. And I agree with you. I think that that's going to be a part of this defense going in the future. I know with the Dallas Cowboys and Dirty there 2 years ago, nobody ran more stunts in the league than the Cowboys did 2 seasons ago. And so it is a part of what he wants to do. You did some of it last year. It wasn't as much at the forefront of what you were doing necessarily as the Cowboys had done, but you did do a little bit of it last year. And bringing Lawrence back here now, a guy with familiarity with Dirty, he certainly understands how to run that stuff. And Lawrence is a very good looping blitzer because he can give you that explosion of power stuff that you get where if you get an edge that loops back inside, they're getting the build-up speed that they don't always sometimes get when they're getting in there to make contact up on the guard, kicking into the B gap. And so you give him that little bit of that build-up speed with a guy like Lawrence, who's hell on wheels when he gets up to speed with his size, length, and power. You like maybe utilizing that just a little bit more. So I would agree. I'd expect us to be doing a bit more of that this year as well on that. Robbie Red, thank you for the $1 donation, Robbie Red. That's very kind of you. And I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you. Didn't have a message there put in there, Robbie, but thanks. It's good to catch you finally. Get you live finally. Go Hawks. Thank you, Robbie. It's good to catch you live. Thank you for catching me live as well. I know I've been promising doing an evening show. We're going to get an evening show here at some point. So we're going to get a couple of those mixed in because I know some folks have a harder time kind of making it to the midday shows, and I can completely appreciate that. We'll kind of keep these mixed up. I know I was going to do last week Murphy on the evening, and I got caught sidetracked on it. So we'll get a couple of afternoon shows in there too, Robbie. But good to have you in the house, brother. Good to see you. Thomas says, only way I take Ramsey is to snake a player from Jake's Rams, especially since the Rams are going 13-4. Well, that's a part of the situation too, in that you grab a player that you're going to keep from the Rams and doing it, which, I'm sure we don't want to necessarily have our moves motivated by keeping a player away from given team A. You want to move motivated by what this player supplies your team and making your team better and improving you. But at the same point in time, it's not the worst of extra cherry on top that you not only add a guy like Ramsey who improves your outside corner, you have a guy now under club control for 2 years who frees you up with the Tariq Woolen situation where Tariq decides he wants to be paid $20+ million a year, that if you don't want to pay that, you at least have a Ramsey building block to build off of into next offseason to add to the cornerback room. So he brings you that addition there too. He doesn't cost a lot of money. And then the last part of it being the point that you raised, you're keeping him away from the Rams in addition to this. Kind of got a lot of wins there on that deal in grabbing Ramsey, especially to me, considering the cost is not going to be tremendously great. We're not getting prime Ramsey. You're not going to get the best, but significant improvement over Josh Jobe. I mean, you can make the argument that Ramsey is a bigger upgrade over Josh Jobe than maybe even a Hendrickson would be in total of a player. Pass rusher way improvement, but I'm talking about bringing his run defense into bear with this too. That you're maybe even getting more of a significant upgrade for where you stood versus where your edge group currently sits and bringing in a guy like Hendrickson. Thomas says, Wednesday's my birthday, so definitely going to make that show. Well, happy birthday in advance, man. Would you rather trade for Parsons or go after Bitonio or Teller? I'd go after Parsons. Parsons is another guy I worry a little bit about how he defends the run at times, and that, it's like a younger Hendrickson a little bit and just getting sometimes too concentrated on pass rush, but you have the familiarity here with Dirty, who knows how to utilize him, number one. Number two, the big part that I've come to here in this offseason that I'm landing at, and just my own kind of personal belief here and want, is I'd like to kind of find us get something a little bit more dynamic off the edge. I feel like we're good on the edge. I feel like we're solid on the edge. But I'd like to get a little bit more of a game changer kind of edge. A guy that maybe forces more of offenses to drive a double team block his way, specifically taking a running back who's got to come over there and help that edge. And now when I run my stack boxes, when I run my simulated pressures, when I run my stunts and my loops from Macdonald's perspective, now am I freeing up a lot of other guys with one-on-one blocks who would not have those one-on-one blocks otherwise, but I've got this super dynamic edge guy that's causing these teams to have to dedicate resources to him. And I'm kind of becoming enamored by this thought. I don't say that I'd go for hell to do it, or that I just, let's sacrifice all the futures of tomorrow to make this happen. But if a trade came into the sight line that could make some sense here, especially if you're able to utilize one of these glut of edges to lower down the draft capital cost that you'd have to pay for Micah Parsons, I think I'd go that direction of it. But Tonio is like 35 years old. I loved him coming out. I wanted us at our Seahawks back in the day to draft him coming out. He was one of my favorite offensive linemen. This tells you, guys, how long I've been pining for us to get an offensive line in place that was legitimate. I desperately wanted Bitonio when he was coming out of that draft. With Teller, I'm not as much on that. He's a right guard. He's not really a left guard. You've already got plenty of right guards kind of on the roster already. He's a little bit older. He's not as old as Bitonio, but he doesn't do a lot for me on that side of it either to that degree. I don't think he's a significant enough upgrade for what you currently have to think that that's going to be a bigger, better improvement. Steven says, yeah, I got to not let the Rams get Ramsey back. What the F? Especially if they're going to get him back for like a bag of peanuts, Steven. Like we're going to come to find like Rams made a 4th-round trade for Jalen Ramsey and they got the Miami Dolphins to eat half of his salary for the like, oh my God. Right? You go, why we got to make this easy on him? Can we make this a little bit tougher on him, teams? You know, I mean, if that's the cost around, that's why I want to be in on kicking the tires on this one. Is like, let's make sure we're not just, at the very least, let's drive the cost up. You know, let's tell him we'll do the third, like force the Rams to kick in something good here at least. If we're not really even intending to get him. Yeah, Jordan, I don't think Ramsey's great anymore as well. I don't think that he's in the prime territory of things. Keep in mind that he was a little bit misutilized last year by Miami. They tried to kick him more into the slot and have him do more of that type of stuff, which is not the best way to utilize it. Ramsey was never a slot guy. He's a bit of a bigger cornerback. That's just not a guy that's going to work as well to me in the slot as much. And they're trying to take advantage of his tackling. And this is a little bit of the Dolphins' adjustment that they were trying to make to that same 12 personnel, 2 tight end looks. You know, okay, we'll bring Ramsey in and we'll have our 3 corners, but Ramsey will be one of our 3rd corners and he can tackle like a linebacker. So but Ramsey didn't really want to play that role. He's an outside guy. To your point, though, I do say he's not going to be great anymore, but he will still be very, very solid. And he will still be a big improvement over what you probably have there with Job. Femi Moore Seahawks, the most surprising 3-year rookie you think takes the next step? So the guy going into his 3rd year? Well, I think this is the year with Witherspoon that he finally gets some of the statistics to back it up to where he can be recognized. He should have already been recognized for as good a player as he is, but I think this is the year where he really gets a chance to shine out in a way that really puts him on great display, and that the rest of the country is really going to get it when they see it with him on that. I mean, he's already kind of broken out with that, but I don't know if I've got another guy on that for year 3 guys necessarily, beyond where that is with the people we have on the roster currently. I'm not sure Hall comes a lot more forward than where he came from last year. I think he probably can get a little bit, even just a tiny bit better and more consistent as a pass rusher. But I think that as a run defender, he's kind of what he is at this point. So I don't know if I point to him going forward. I don't know if Charbonnet, I'm not even super positive on Charbonnet's full fit as the kind of running back archetype that Kubiak would look for. I think he can make it work here. Don't get me wrong there, but I don't know if I've got another guy from the other draft class there that I can really go to. JSN's already kind of broken out, of course, so he's sort of taken that step here already. Witherspoon would be the guy that, at least statistically, I think I could see him come away this year with the 4 or 5 interceptions and a couple sacks as a blitzer because he's going to be utilized in that way a lot. Some really great coverage numbers. I'd go there, feed me. I wish I could give you another guy, but I don't think there's anybody else that I really find myself landing on there. Metal Dragon, I don't like Ramsey. I don't want to see him in a Seahawk uniform. I get it. Former Ram, man. I get it. Thomas says, Cable Do podcast was very interesting. I think Seattle got a steal with him. Are you going to do a show on Richmond? I need to dive a little bit more deeper into Richmond. I'd watched a bit of his tape, and he didn't blow me away as much. I mean, with Cable Do, I definitely had a little bit more of liking what I saw from him, the light feet, the seeing that, okay, he's a tackle. It's not going to work a tackle, but a go to guard at the next level, and that will work. I was a little bit hesitant with Richmond and wondering where the fit would be as much with him. But I've got to dive back into Richmond a little bit deeper there, Thomas, and see. Maybe at some point we'll look at Richmond. But I just wasn't really, I don't have as much of that optimism as I did kind of even for Cable Do. Thomas says, if Seattle gets Ramsey for a bag of peanuts, then I'm all for it. Plus, I think Seattle more further along than everyone thinks. I love it, Thomas. And look, you've 3 straight winning seasons, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The only team in NFL history the last 2 years that has got a winning record in 2 straight seasons, but didn't get to the playoffs in either of those years. There's a lot here, especially first year of head coach Mike Macdonald, 10 wins, youngest head coach in the NFL, first-time head coach. A lot of things there that should give you, to your point on that, a lot of optimism for this future and that this is only going to continue to improve and get better and better and that they're closer and closer. Certainly the talent is there. Space, do you remember when Ramsey popped Geno out of bounds? DK grabbed him by the face mask. I do, Space. And Ramsey did not want any of that smoke with DK. It's like, I'm good. Thomas says it's not surprising with JSN or Spoon, maybe Hall. It's kind of hard on that, yeah. With Hall, I just worry about the run defense not quite coming forward. I just don't think the instincts aren't necessarily there with him. He's got some of the power and strength, but boy, he gets stuck on the block and loses track of the ball carrier way too easy. And he does struggle at times too, which is weird for him as strong as he is, setting the edge. He really has a hard time setting strong edges at times. Ricardo says that dime package in the Legion of Boom years with Earl, Bam, Jerron Johnson was special. Pete put a second-round tender on Jerron when he became a free agent as a safety. Indeed he did, yeah. That was the one thing Carroll used to do back in the days, usually have that safety would be that fourth corner on the field for you. And that was a hell of a unit, man. It really was, Ricky. 100%. Well said, man. Jerron's a good little player. HHG, like and sub y'all. If I can, I'm in California, so can you. Thank you, HHG. I appreciate you, man. Hope everything's going good out here in Cali. Seth says, I hope they can keep Kupp fresh and rotate him in well. He's been titled with injuries throughout his career. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be rocking him out there 24/7. You want to be managing his load. And you've got a lot of receivers on this roster to kind of intermix through there to where he shouldn't necessarily have to do that. So hopefully they've got a really strong plan in place for how to keep him fresh throughout the year, long season and all that. That there's a tendency from the Rams and how they've used Kupp in the past to overuse him a bit too much to that degree. But hopefully Kupp can stay healthy, man. That's the big question with him right now is he a guy that just is going to keep having those injuries? Just doesn't matter every year coming around that he's kind of wore out his body a bit. You worry about that a little maybe with him, but Seattle feels good about him. They feel good that he's going to get back. So why you mad, bro? What's up? You mad, bro? Seth, Walter Thurman was really underrated nickel on the Legion of Boom back in the day. He was really good nickel. Got himself a nice little contract off that. That's where we started getting kind of pilfered a little bit. But he was kind of one of those players like Jerron, filled a very important role there on that defense and played it well. I think he's a former. I think they had him in the second round, Seth. He's one of the highest drafted corners in the Carroll era. I think it was Walter Thurman coming out of Oregon. Might have been second or third round. He had I think some ACL stuff, but he's a very talented kid. Would have gone much higher if not for injuries coming out of college. Thomas says, what UDFA will steal a player's job at the end of the season in January, if anyone can guess? Ooh. That's a good question. I would go with... I don't think Ivy's stealing anybody's job. Probably Zy Alexander. And that's as much as that just after week one, there are some question marks on this team with the cornerback room. Job, Nehemiah Pritchett, Zy, he's got a really open path to go in there and taking a job if he wants. Ricky Thomas was a second round pick. I was remembering that right. See, Ricky, the old brain ain't gone yet, man. I got a little bit of some stuff still able to go on there. So yeah, Thurman had the very serious, I think, knee injury coming out. Might have torn his ACL once or twice at Oregon, and that's why you were able to get him in the second round. But one of the highest taken cornerbacks in the Coach Carroll era, aside from a Witherspoon. Why you mad, bro? Do you think we are going to trade for another defensive back? Yeah, I think we do sign somebody. I think why you mad, bro? You could be looking at Shaquille Griffin or Rasul Douglas. I think those are kind of the insurance policies. I think the team would like to find something a little more significant than those guys. That's why they haven't signed him at this point. Is it's kind of kicking the tires on him a little bit. But going, boy, we would like to do a little bit more than this. I mean, this is fine, but this is fine. It's not going to cost a lot, but we would like to maybe get a little bit more of an upgrade. Stevens says, I always remember Byron Maxwell. He would have a game out of nowhere. Maxie was that 1 year too, especially. He had a couple of years there. He was really good. His ball skills were just great. When you had him and Sherman back there, I mean, those guys could take it away. That one-handed interception he had of Eli Manning on a crossing route. So he's trailing on the crosser, catches up to the crosser, catches it with his hand cutting in right here, and is able to just pull it all in with one arm from like 5 yards away with Manning throwing it full steam. Hell of a grab. That says Thurman went to my high school, West Covina High in Cali. He was such an incredible athlete to watch when he would do hurdles on our track. Definitely a guy with a lot of physical ability to him, Seth. That's for sure. Injuries ended up kind of dinging him a bit. He did get the one contract, I think, after that year, but then I think the injuries started to kind of hold him back again. Ricky says, do you see similarities with the secondary compared to the past ones because most of the guys are still peak guys? I mean, maybe not as much. No, I think that there's definitely some inherited stuff here, but there's some overlap to Coach Carroll and Mike Macdonald stuff too here a little bit, I would say. I mean, both Coach Carroll and Mike Macdonald are going to have two major things in common when it comes to secondary play that's going to allow you to have some bleed over between the talent. Number one, they're mainly zone-centric defenses. So that's the first part. And then number two, they're zone-centric defenses with a very high prevalence of running only front four pressure, meaning that it's going to tend to drop 7 guys into coverage. So there is a little bit of overlap there between the two, I would say. You might have in Mike a little more willingness to play some, man bump and run kind of situations. You might a little more risk taking at times from a secondary as far as squeezing routes up and not playing as much to depth as Carroll would protect against the deep ball as defense, more of a forefront. So there are some extra stuff down the line, but I think at the front side base of it, there's a lot of similarities between the two. Thomas Brandon Browner was another good one. Yeah, another guy with some pretty good ball skills as well. Garth Knight in the house. Good to see you, Garth. Always good to see you, brother. It's great to see Xena in the perch. Pumpkin is great, but good to see she can share. She has finally let Xena have a little bit of some time here in the cat tree, man. It only took about 13 years for Pumpkin to finally let her have a little bit of some time up in the cat tree. But the very forgiving Pumpkin, Garth, has allowed it. She'll be a merciful cat here for the time period. So yeah, she's letting Xena come up here, and Xena's been co-piloting with me during the day shows. It's been kind of cool. Good to see you in the house, Garth. Hope you're doing well, brother. I know it's tough to get here on the midday shows for you. We're going to be doing some evening shows too for you, bro. For sure. JL says Lumen Field's getting $19 million in World Cup upgrades. Ooh, that's cool. Hopefully it makes the stadium louder. Hopefully it's for the acoustics, JL. Why you mad, bro? Who do you think is going to end up winning the starting right guard, Anthony Bradford or Christian Haynes? I'm going to go with Christian Haynes. I have not seen enough natural improvement in Bradford. He came in as a very rough, raw right guard who had a long way to go. Only 13 starts at LSU. He remains 2-3 years into the place here, a rough, raw guard that seems to have still a long way to go. Haynes had not a great year last year, but I do agree with many people that are saying he is going to be better suited to the zone-centric scheme, that you're going away from some of that gap stuff last year and some of the mano-a-mano stuff of Grubb system with the spread concepts to more zone, and that's going to fit to Haynes, and that's what Haynes did at UConn. So I'll give it to Haynes. Max Bailey, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Garth Knight, celebrating 30 months, almost 3 years. He's working his way through here as a Hawks Nest member, and members of the channel will be doing a Sunday call-in show this week. So if you are a member of the channel, be on the lookout for that. I'll try to get that posted even today if I can. But Garth, thank you for that long-time support and dedication, as well as being a big-time contributor to this channel. Appreciate you for that. Says, by the way, 7.5 is a low win total for the Hawks. We were here last year telling you folks, look, take the over. Vegas has us at 7.5 wins. Take the over on this one, Garth, and you would have won yourself some good money last year if you'd taken that over. Likewise, this year, I would say the same thing. I understand why Vegas is unsure of this, the Darnold factor of this, the losing Geno, the losing DK, Cooper Kupp's health hold up. I understand why Vegas is a little bit nervous on this one, but this is a market opportunity for somebody to come in and take advantage of it, as far as for me on that bet side of it. So I think it's much more likely that they get above that 7.5 win total. And Garth, I did do a little bit of a breakdown on that show with the Vegas prediction we did a couple weeks ago and diving into this data. And when I looked at the last 10 years, because what stood out to me is Vegas kind of does this to us normally. Over the last 10 years, Vegas has only gotten Seattle under, they've only thought we were going to win, had more wins than we actually had than 3 times. And 6 times they've had us too low. And then on top of that, Garth, not only in those last 10 years, 6 times did you have us too low as far as our winning predictions go, but then you were off by on average about 2 to 2.5 games every time that you were low. Whereas when you went high and you went above us for those 3 times, you were only a game higher on average than where we ended up at. So does Vegas have something kind of against Seattle? Is there a little bit of like they're not kind of viewing us accurately and appropriately? Or I don't know. It's kind of weird on that one. So I'm certainly going to try to get my happy ass to the casino if I can and try to figure that out on that one. Thomas says it's not, but I got Miller number 6. Hopefully it's lucky and he turns into a great player and Seattle wins in a Super Bowl. Hopefully he does. He does. It's for natural grass and grow lights and some other stuff. Are they going natural grass and lumen permanently, or is it just is it just for the soccer? Seth is so excited to see Emmanwori play on this team. Such a great freak athlete. He can develop into something great. He's got all the natural tools you could want in the book, man, and then some. It's going to be about, now at this point, how much you want it, how hard you willing to work. Do you want to be great? Do you want to lean on your natural ability? You know, that's the question now here for Emmanwori, and hopefully he's got that great worker, because if he is, he can be, with that ability, with that length and size and speed and quickness and explosiveness, ball skills, you know, you got all-time great likability there in that body if you can tap into it. Especially as he's entering into the NFL in this age right now, where a guy like this that can be not a tweener, but can play a variety of different positions, will linebacker, slot cornerback, free safety, strong safety. He can fit them all and fit them all true and right and good. That's more useful than ever to have in this day and age with how offenses have transitioned and defenses have changed. Dogzilla, will the interior offensive line still suck compared to any other team? Well, I think it'll be a middle-of-the-road offensive line in the best-case scenario, Dogzilla. So will it suck? I don't know if it's going to suck. It's not going to be as bad as it's been in recent years, but I certainly don't see a unit that's going to get up to becoming dominant in just year one of Kubiak. It's kind of going to be a little bit of still at times, holding on for dear life, and some of this is going to be based upon Abraham Lucas's health and whether he's out there for a full season. There's some question marks there. Metal says, I'm going to need to see this Kubiak scheme be successful before I buy stock in it. That's fair enough, man. Completely fair enough. We've had a run of some not great offensive coordinators in recent years, too. That's for sure. Max says, I got a Metcalf jersey. How much money to get it altered into a Darnold number 14? You just got to get the stitching taken off of the name, man. I mean, just get it over the top of Darnold, I suppose. Shout out to Mark Sanchez. Got me my Metcalf signed jersey here a couple of days ago. I don't know if you guys saw. We got a little bit of a change in the backdrop. Got ourselves a Hawk helmet up and everything. Digging it. Martin Lawrence, thank you for the $10 donation, Mark. I really appreciate that, brother. A little off topic, but I think the fan discussion has become less adversarial since Geno and DK were traded. Maybe the trades bring whatever the schism was to a close. Potentially so. Martin, I would love to see it. You know, I really would like to see it. Those were two very divisive players in the fan base, and I certainly had my share of rows through the years in regards to both those players, and a variety of different debates and arguments go. But I would probably agree with you that does sort of remove two of the biggest hot topics on this team off the table, and that you go to Devin Witherspoon, everybody loves Devin Witherspoon. You know, Charles Cross, everybody likes those guys. Kenneth Walker, everybody likes Kenneth Walker. You know, maybe the one guy now remaining on this one, Martin, would maybe be Reek Woolen. You know, as the final kind of guy on that's a little bit got some differentiation of opinion on him. But you're right about those two guys being ones that just drew a lot of passion from both sides of the camps that stood on it there, and definitely caused a lot of infighting in the Seattle fan base on that one. So. Yeah, and maybe just one of the reasons not the reason to make the trade, but supplemental reason you make those kind of moves as you did. And at the heart of, I think, why, and I do believe I know that Geno and DK asked for a trade, but I think John drove this in a lot of ways. You know, you had the DK trade rumors prior to DK asking for a trade, for instance. You know, Geno waited until he heard Seattle's contract offer to then ask for a trade. You drove these things to happen as much as anything. And I think some of that was to make sure that you had everybody that was in line with wanting to be here and in on Mike Macdonald and what he was doing and with his vision, and that there wasn't any of that sort of half in, half out kind of feel to it. So I think you have kind of eliminated whatever vestiges of that did remain there, Martin, to your point, I think. Yeah, it's good point on your part. And thank you, man, for the donation. Well said. Thomas says, I wonder why fans' opinions will be if the O-line sucks and the offense can't move the ball through the running game, but JSN and Arroyo play good, though. Yeah, I would imagine that if the offensive line's poor again, it's going to drive some people pretty crazy. And I'm going to have a hard time fighting against that one myself, especially understanding you didn't do as much as you probably could have done this offseason to really reinforce that unit and get it improved. So there's going to be people angry if it goes that way. I'll say that. Steven says we need some occasional mud games. I'd like it, man. I like all grass. Let's go back all grass. I'm with it. JS is all right. I read the rest of the article. It sounds like it's going to stay grass for Seahawks. That'd be great. That would be just great. I would love to see that. Let's go. The grass is the way to do it. And it's silly in a place like the Pacific Northwest with all the rain we have and all that you couldn't manage the field and have it look just pristine and perfect. Come on. It's better for the players. It's safer for the players. Our players are healthier for it if you can put them on this kind of stuff rather than the fake stuff. Seth says, Kubiak does have a track record of success where he's coached so far. Saints were blowing teams out before they got riddled with injuries and improved his O-line plays across the board. Amen. He was very good with the Vikings in his first stop, great with the Saints last year in his first stop. And it's no small thing to talk about that, Seth, because it's not like the Saints offense was a juggernaut prior to him arriving. It's not like everything was in place for him to succeed and have success there, especially immediately like he did. And to your point, if that team stays healthy, if Derek Carr gets past Game 7, if you don't lose Eric McCoy, your all-pro center after 4 weeks into the season, Cesar Ruiz, one of your better guards on your team, dealing with injuries throughout the year. If these things don't come up, does that team go out and win the division last year? Maybe so. Maybe so, especially in that division, which is wide open. Metal says, I do think we have talent on offense, plus we had a turnover at quarterback and wide receiver, plus a rookie left guard and a new scheme. If nothing else, it'll be different. It will be different, and it's going to be improved, Metal Dragon, from where Grubb was. I think some of the stuff at times gets just a bit too overstated, where it's like, Grubb was basically Thanos, and now he's talked about. But Grubb was very bad in a couple of areas. The sequencing of plays, the lack of helping out his offensive line, the lack of under center stuff, the predictability of his offense. It was bad all the way around with Grubb last year to put that offensive line in that predicament he did. And Kubiak is on the other end of that scale as far as his scheme is wholly driven to make it easier on his players. Doesn't guarantee success, but you start from one coach giving his guys the opportunities for success and the other coach making it very hard for them to go out there and get the win on that rep. And I think that's the very staunch difference between those two guys, and it's to a very big degree. It's one guy that's a college coach. It's one guy who's got the NFL pedigree, background, lineage to understand what he can and cannot get away with. Understand that there's rules that have been learned by his father that he's carried forward, hard-learned rules that Grubb was just starting to learn, I think, last year at the pro level, moving off from college. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, I agree with Metal Dragon. Going to need to see something outside the horseshit we've seen over the last decade to think Kubiak is different at all. I have no problems with that whatsoever. Prove it to me at this point when it comes to the offense. Prove it to me at this point when it comes to the offensive line. Prove it to me at this point when it comes to the offensive coordinator. I think these are all fair standpoints to take. You've gone from Jeremy Bates to Bevel to Schottenheimer to Waldron. You went through a litany of guys to Grubb. And all have kind of left you wanting a little bit. Offensive line wise, we all know the problems there. It's been 10 years long. There's nothing, you're not being a Moody fan. You're not being just a skeptic to look at this offensive line and say it's been trash for 10 years. You went and got a first round pick this offseason, and kind of all you did, you brought in a new coaching staff who were supposed to be essentially experts at training up O-line play. Hopefully they are that. But it would have been nicer to see a little bit more hammered on this unit than you got to see. And I think that that's a completely fair outlook on this, Garth, because again, we come back to it. It is kind of 10 years of this. You might find one season outlier here or there, but by and large for 10 years, the weakest part of your team has been your offensive line. And then you go out this offseason and don't do a ton to reinforce that. So I get where folks are coming with on that. I do have a little more confidence on this, I think, than you guys might have on that. But it just comes from this being the best of those hires. When I look at Jeremy Bates, Schottenheimer, Waldron, Bevel, Grubb, and then I've got Kubiak, one of these things does not look like the others. One of these things is much, much better than the others. But we'll see. Got to prove it. Daniel, hey everyone. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, Daniel. And Garth, thank you for the donation, brother. Thomas says, I don't know if Darnold plays bad and us fans see Milroe tear it up, then there will be a schism, but fan base seems united. Yeah, you're definitely going to You're going to see a lot of people being hot to trot for Milroe, and there's going to be a lot of calls for that throughout the year. It's just going to be what it is. People are going to want the shiny new toy, the shiny, fancy new quarterback that can do everything, especially if Darnold has some of his I'm seeing ghost kind of moments. Garth says that was a 5-game stretch with last year's Saints. We're praising this. 100% we're praising this, Garth. 100%. It doesn't give you certainty about knowing that there's no guarantees in the sport. All you can do is drive yourself into a place of feeling better about something than feeling worse, or you got a little bit more confidence than you have skepticism in regards to that. But as I said on this, the thing with the Saints and coming into last year is to understand what did he inherit? You know, it's one thing if a guy comes in for 5 games and he's taking over a monster and he's just keeping the monster going. It's another thing when he's coming in for an offense that was pretty depraved, that was pretty light, that didn't have, I mean, what did he have out there? You've got Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. You've got an older Alvin Kamara. Their offensive line with some talent, but you're also starting a rookie over at your right tackle spot. And most of these offensive coordinators, Garth, when they come in, you don't get immediate success. It takes them time to develop and get their scheme implemented in. So to get a guy walking in for a system and a scheme and for a talent base and for a team that wasn't particularly in a good position for him to find success, to then find the instantaneous success, and then to see within it, Garth, that they then get just decimated with injuries across that offense. That has nothing to do with him. It's not his fault that you lose pretty much all your offensive linemen. It's not his fault that Derek Carr is throwing hospital balls to Chris Olave, and now Chris Olave is out for the whole year. It's not his fault that you lose Derek Carr after 6 games, and now you have Spencer Rattler as your starting quarterback for the full year. I mean, none of that really lands in on his plate of it. It's just kind of the bad luck of what they dealt with as far as the Saints go with it. So it's not to say that it guarantees the success of him landing in here, Garth, but it definitely was very impressive work that he did that with and to get that done. And the bottom line with it is that whether or not it was this through that 5 or 6 games, I can go look at every offensive lineman on that team. I can go look at every backup offensive lineman who came in there for the starters, and I can show you guys who had career best years across the board. That speaks to the sequencing of his plays, to setting defenses up, to keeping defenses off guard of what they're seeing, to putting his offensive lineman in position for success. And that speaks to how, good he is then as a coordinator. Not that he walks on water, but just that it's a significant improvement over the other guys that you had brought in here prior, which were a little bit more into kind of being yes men, boring schemes, not a lot of pre-snap motion, not a lot of trying to confuse defenses, not a lot of keeping defense off guard. It's more about, do you have the commitment to run the ball? Or are you going to just go wild and crazy with your air raid offense like Grubb did, But again, I got no problem with saying, hey, you got to prove it to me. You got to show it to me. But I do think in this one, that's why I do have the confidence with this is a bit of a different hire than ones we've made in the past. Waldron had no history being an offensive coordinator. First time offensive coordinator. Grubb never had history being an NFL offensive coordinator. You're not kind of taking as much of those shoot in the dark kind of shots on this kind of hire than the other ones. Steven says, I'm so jacked. Isn't everyone else in the NFL West real grass? Cardinals are real grass. Yeah, I believe that that's the case. I'm not positive on the Rams one, but I know that with the Cardinals it is, and I know with the Niners it is. For sure. Thomas says, people think that the offense isn't going to change. Hadn't seen the fact that Geno and DK aren't Seahawks players anymore. Kupp, JSN, Darnold is different compared to Geno and DK. Yeah, it's going to change on that basis too. Just on tendencies and routes you run and how you use your X receiver. Dog said, let's hope Sam D can take hits as well as Geno did. Yeah. Hopefully so. Because Geno was under a lot of pressure, though I will say, kind of interesting enough on this one, Dogzilla. I was looking at some of the advanced stats for Darnold show that we're going to do. And interestingly enough, as far as totality goes, he was under more pressure than Geno last year, according to some of the pressure numbers. But he's going to have to deal with it. Seattle would have a beautiful field, says Steven. We would, man. All that rain, it'd be looking lush. It's got that nice green to it. It's got to happen, man. It's a no-brainer to me. If I was an NFL owner, I'd be like, we should have done this 10 years ago. I want my players playing on the best surfaces that keep them healthiest. And it's been proven outside of like a 1-year outlier that in recent 30-year history of the NFL, the natural grass versus the turf stuff, grass is much more safer. Much more. Roy Froelich, thank you for the $10 donation, Roy. Appreciate you for that. And it's good to see you in the house, brother, as well as being a member of the channel. Thank you for that. As bad as I worry about our offensive line, isn't nose tackle that really makes me uneasy. It's both those are the two positions, to your point, that are the weakest on this team. And one being over the other, I don't know. We gravitate, I think, to offensive line, Roy, just because there's more positions there that feel like there's uncertainty or question marks versus the nose tackle position where it's just the one position, but it is a question mark, like you say. I think that the team's got some reinforcements there to be able to get by at this one. So you don't want to put Byron Murphy in a nose tackle for another year, but he can do the job if you need him to do that. You don't think Hankins has a lot left there, but he can give you some snaps throughout the game and familiarity within defense and personnel to get it done. And then you have Jaron Reed, who's not maybe a nose tackle as much purely anymore, but can give you some snaps in there. And kind of what I'm saying on this, Roy, is that maybe you can kind of cobble together enough to get by at that versus where you come to the offensive line, you may not have a left guard on this roster that works right now. I mean, at all. Not even a fill-in, not even a whatever. I mean, we might come to find that Gray's Abel really only works as a center in this league. And then we're scrambling to try to find that left guard. Abraham Lucas's knee, is it going to hold up another year? We'll see. It seems like it's a real question mark. Christian Haynes, we think he'll fit for this zone scheme, but don't know. Bradford, Roz, the day is long. So Amaya, another guy converted from tackle to guard from college, who's kind of still in the middle of that conversion a little bit. So there's definitely a little more of those questions there, but I'm with you on the nose tackle being one that it's not that isn't a question. I just think you can kind of maybe get by at it a little bit more so than you can with the offensive line. Roy, I think you could make a move if it got desperate at the nose tackle position. Whereas if you got desperate with the offensive line, as we saw last year, you're SOL. There's no really anything you're going to be able to make move-wise. I mean, they did the Connor Williams thing, which got him by a little bit last year, but that's not even a normal situation that'd be available to you anyway. That was just because the guy was coming off the injury. So you're probably by and large kind of stuck there with the line. Whereas nose tackle, I think you could, if you really had to go make a move, if you really felt like, man, we are super lean here, you can find a team that'll give up a run-stuffing nose tackle. Maybe you have to overpay a little bit at that point, but you could at least find something there. I think you could get stuck with this offensive line. So you got to get that thing done in the offseason. It's not a lot of trade deadline deals for offensive linemen, is there? You'll get it for the edges. You'll get it for cornerbacks. You might for a linebacker. You might for a receiver. You ain't going to get it for the offensive line, though. But, Roy, back to your point on this, and I don't want to kick the leg out of your point on this. The nose tackle position is right there with the offensive line as far as being the big major questions on this team as it stands right now. Thomas says, that's why I was pro keeping Grubb. He didn't get to institute his players because the staff got hired last year. So if year two in Seattle is worse or hasn't changed, then I'm going after the GM. It makes sense there. I think some of that too had to do with a little bit of the relationship of Macdonald and Grubb, and whether or not, we had multiple times of Macdonald telling him to run the ball and he didn't do it in games. I think that it's going to be hard if you have a coach who feels like his offensive coordinator is not listening to him. And we do know in Mike Macdonald that he wanted to fire him at the bye week last year, and that Schneider talked him out of it. So I think that some of that was not just the lack of success for Grubb, but also the relationship between Grubb and Macdonald. Thomas says, I keep coming to it. Schneider was the problem because he didn't overly hammer the O-line compared to Chicago. So blaming an OC when it's a GM problem, and it won't change until there's a GM change. Well, look, I'm with you on the whole thing about the offensive line needing more put into it, for sure. This is where we come down to sometimes we go, well, it's an either or, right? And we live in the binary world where it's zeros and ones rather than it being, well, maybe it's a bit of both on that, tape where it is both Schneider not addressing the offensive line, and it's also that you just didn't have the right offensive coordinator there, where it can be a bit of both of those things happening at the same time. I'm not letting Schneider off the hook here, Thomas, and I've said that I will be hammering him as much as anybody if you're going to go through another season of not dealing with this offensive line, understanding it was such a deficiency, understanding that you needed to get it dealt with this offseason, and yet not really doing that. And it being another offseason, you didn't do that. So I will be right there to throw the smoke at him. But I think when it comes to Grubb, I think by and large, yeah, you'd like to give an offensive coordinator that extra year. You don't want to fire him after 1 year. But I think that you also can make certain determinations after the first year about go or no, about is this a relationship between coach and offensive coordinator, which is a great marriage, or is that the two kind of guys that you brought together in kind of the chaos of the late hire of Mike Macdonald and the lack of readily available options as far as offensive coordinator goes, and you tried to just kind of shoot for the moon and grab the big hire that you hope could just blow up, and it just wasn't working. And yeah, the results weren't there, but it maybe just wasn't working in the background and how you were trying to roll this. For instance, I think Grubb got thrown off big time by his lack of ability to run as many reps as he could run in college to get down the plays as much. Don't have as much of that to lean back on at the pro level. Got to get more done with less a little bit. Maybe not if they didn't feel like he could do that. I think there's a lot that went into that decision more than just, purely how his offensive line was executing or how he was sequencing plays. But there was a lot that was bad there within Grubb. There was a lot that was bad there with Grubb. And I think the learning curve was not just one where year two, even with an improved offensive line, that this thing was going to be way better at that point. Might have been marginally better, but I think you saw enough there to go, he's got some limiting factors to him as an OC that even if we improve this offensive line, that's still going to be held back a little bit. But don't get me wrong, I'm not signing off on Schneider doing magic work this offseason. I've asked for, I think, the last 4 straight off seasons on this channel, Thomas, and you've been here every step of the way, so I know you know this, and saying, look, let's make offensive line the point of emphasis this offseason. Let's turn this thing into a strength, God forbid. And then we don't do it. So I'm with you. Dogzilla, which NFC West team has the best offensive coaching staff? Well, I guess probably the Rams as it stands right now. But it's, right between them and probably the Niners with Shanahan's background and what he's done. Both of those two organizations have been, both offensive-driven teams by head coaches have been to both those Super Bowls over the last few years. So I think you got to give it to them. I don't know if I'd pick one or the other over Dogzilla on that too. Both of them had kind of somewhat similar success. Rams got the dub in the Super Bowl, but both have been to multiples. And multiples they've been to driven largely by their offenses to get there. Max says, I like McVay a bit more than Shanahan, but it's close. I don't even know how much about their coordinators. And they to your point, Max, too, they've rotated through a lot of coordinators through the years here. So, guys get hired, go to other jobs, bring in another guy, go there. I mean, even Kubiak was with the Niners a couple of years ago. They put together really great staffs. And I'm with you. It's kind of close, hard. They're much closer than they're further apart. And it's kind of a baker's choice on that one. That says, well, the Niners think they're going back to the Super Bowl because they got Salah back. They do, man. Yeah. I don't think that he's going to be that important to driving them there. They got other things that are going to be much bigger factors to them getting back than I think Salah. I think he can only bring so much impact. And there's something Salah brings that are still a little bit back in the old Carroll vestiges of things. And, what you're going to see pre to post snap from a coverage standpoint is going to remain the same. Don't want to blitz a lot. Not going to run a lot of games up front. He did a little bit more of that with the Jets over time than what he'd done with the Niners, but I don't know on the Salah one. I think he's a good coordinator. Don't get me wrong, I do, but I don't know if he's going to come in there to be a miracle worker for that defense, especially losing some of the talent they've lost this last offseason. Hufanga out of there. Grainlaw's out of there. That defensive line's not as strong as it was when Salah was there in his first stop. Martin says, John Schneider said in interviews that they knew they needed to improve the O-line. Would love to hear his explanation for what wasn't done in free agency and, more importantly, the drafts we've had some real misses on. Yeah, I don't know if his viewpoint on this, Martin, is exceptionally clear to your question, because some of the answers that he gave this offseason to me were a little bit not great in regards to him having a real clear view of it. Something that he pointed to was the fact that former offensive line players who didn't necessarily do as great here went on to have good careers in other places. And I think that that's not, to me, really something that adds up, So what he's doing is when he says that, he's pointing to the fact that, well, our development and coaching in-house wasn't as good to maximize those players as is other places. But it's, to me, that's kind of a simplistic way of looking at it. And when you really dive into the details for why it was that way, you get to things like the Ethan Posick situation. Did Ethan Posick become a better center once he left here and has been stable and good in that way? Sure. But you played Ethan Posick at guard through the first couple of years of his career. You didn't let him develop at that natural position that he went to on the other team, and he played really well at. So it is a little bit out of pocket of John to try to point to that as being the reason. There's a little bit of that at the heart of it there. But he's also explained to the other half of that, Martin, when it comes to free agency, he feels like he's overpaying these guys. He feels like I'm having to give up more money for how talented and how good this guy is. I'm overpaying beyond that. And he has said that with certainty over and over and over again, to the point where he's made it very clear this is what he thinks when it comes to that. The money I'm paying in free agency is way too high. The rent is way too damn high. And I don't know if I agree with him. I kind of think, Martin, that look, the price is the price. That's the market price, John. Yeah, but he's only going to give us this much, but that's the market price. The market dictates what the price is. Teams are telling you that offensive linemen are valuable. So maybe you just got to make offensive linemen valuable. And the part that really frustrates me about this is that John had already learned this lesson. You went to a Super Bowl with the highest paid offensive line in the sport at the time. Highest paid. That spoke to the fact that not only did you get the prime talent in there to stabilize it and get it really locked up and well, but that you even went beyond the bare minimum. You pushed beyond that mark, knowing the importance of building a strong offensive line. And now we look back to last year, and how much money did we spend in the offensive line? Oh yeah, that's right. Almost as little as anybody in the entire NFL. No players have you drafted in the last 9 years on the offensive line have you given a second contract to. They have gone cheap. They have gone bare minimum there, and they kind of, in a lot of ways, have done more of that this offseason, save Gray Zabel in the first round. This is why I say I understand some skepticism when it comes to believing that this thing has just completely been fixed then by that measure of it. Zaku says the free agent market for interior offensive line was terrible this year, and he didn't want to sign Will Freeze to a 5-year deal before he had a physical. Indeed, it was not a great year for offensive linemen on that, to your point on that, Zaku. I wouldn't push back on that as well at all. This is where, though, there's multiple ways to kind of slay this horse. And the part that doesn't get talked a lot about is the part about making a trade. And it comes down to, willing to pay cost, not willing to pay cost. The Will Freeze one is an apt one, but I just don't really buy into it's only Will Freeze. And if you don't do Will Freeze, then that's the only move you had to make. It's basically, that was it. That was all you could do. I think that kind of ends up letting John off the hook from going other directions of it. And specifically, I've looked at trades. And look, are teams moving trades and offensive linemen very often? No, they're not. But what I've said that you have to do in the trades is the very same thing with signing guys in free agency. You've got to overpay. And you don't want to overpay. You don't like to overpay. But when you have a league worst offensive line group year in and year out, when you're seeing your offensive line sink your team on a yearly basis, year in and year out, then desperate times, desperate measures. And where it really comes down to on the whole thing with free agents is that we can look at the free agents that are available on the market and who you could and cannot trade for. But we have no information whatsoever about the guys who you could give a little bit of extra draft capital than you feel comfortable with to go get solidity then at the position. Zaku, the big thing I referenced back on this one is the Dwayne Brown trade. You made a Dwayne Brown trade back in 2017. That was the last major offensive line trade that you made, and the only major offensive line trade that John Schneider has made in his entire time here. The only one. And it was a smashing success. It was a hit it out the park home run all day long. And the thing about that trade, to my point on this too with the Zaku, is that you overpaid. You offer the Texans a second round pick and Jeremy Lane in the trade. They make the trade. They get Jeremy Lane there. Texans start to get a little bit of we just gave up a franchise left tackle for a second round pick. Boy, that gives me some heartburn. I don't like that. So then you come back to Seattle and you go, Jeremy Lane, he failed the physical. Yeah. He totally failed the physical. So we're just, we're going to just go ahead and cancel the trade. Unless you want to give us another third round pick in addition to the second round pick. And John came back, and did John say, I'm not overpaying. I don't want to do that. The price was the price. You should hold to the old deal. Deal's off. No. He gave him the third round pick. He said, here's a 2, here's a 3. Get Dwayne in here. We know this is going to benefit us. Huge success. Knock it out the park. Never go down that road ever again. So I'm with the whole process on that there wasn't necessarily great offensive linemen in free agency to go after, and you tried to go with Drew Dahlman, and he wanted to go this, but this is a yearly basis situation too. And here's the thing with this is it's not just this year. It's that this has been a 10-year problem for John Schneider. And you're not correcting it, and you're not really taking the steps to fix it. It's just, the guy that's got to go to the dentist office, and he's got cavities in his mouth and he's in pain constantly, but he just refuses because he's got a fear of needles. Like, I'm sorry, you got to get your teeth fixed, guy. It's the way it goes. It's just going to keep rotting if you don't, go it otherwise. I don't think that it really factors in really at this point to get John off the hook as far as there's an explanation for why he's been able to ignore this at this point. If it was a 1-year problem, Zaku, I'd be with you. If it was a 2-year problem, I'd be with you. But that this has been a 10-year problem, it goes beyond just this offseason, ignoring just this free agency class. And there's multiple ways you can make the trades. But the thing with that is that I'm sure if we press John down, what he'd say is, I don't want to give up that extra trade capital. I don't want to give up that extra 3rd-round pick that I had to give up in 2017 for Dwayne. I don't want to do that. I'll give up the 1 pick. I don't want to give up the 2 picks. And I would just offer to you that, look, you got to give up the 2 picks. Make the offensive line into a strength. Get this thing improved. Stop letting it be the league worst unit it's been that sunk the whole ship. Sunk the whole ship. And it's at threat to possibly happen again this year. I don't think it will, but the threat of it is there, partly because you haven't dealt with it in the major way that needs to be dealt with to get it corrected and to get it fixed. Thomas says, my theory is that Seattle has been through so many OCs. I wouldn't say the same thing if Kubiak was the coach last year. It's consistency for me. They have been through a lot. Yeah. You definitely need some of that consistency to get better cohesion, man. I'm with you there, 100%. Young Vagabond, thank you for the $5 donation. Young, appreciate you for that. Very kind of you. Very kind of you. You think we have more win conditions this upcoming season? We don't have our offense to play out of their mind to win. What do you think? You think we have more win conditions? I think I understand what you're saying, Young. There may have been a word or two that was left out of there. So if I'm misunderstanding your donation, just put back in the chat where I might have misunderstood the question, because let me just read out loud. You think we have more win conditions this upcoming season? I think what you're asking is there more ways to win other than the offense needing to play out of their mind. And yeah, I do think that. I think that there were some games last year where the defense was able to overcome and help out the offense in a lot of ways. To give them those opportunities. And there was games, to your point on this as well, where the offense had to do way more than they probably should have had to have done in some of the games too. But I think that you've built this team towards the defense first and foremost, and that you're returning every one of your starters. In addition to that, you have Jaron Reed coming back, Uchenna Nwosu coming back. You signed DeMarcus Lawrence. This is going to allow your defense to have the potential of being able to kind of carry the team at times, especially with how you're going to run the ball to the other side of it, Young, and that you'll be able to control the clock, shorten down games, play strong defense. I think that you've set this up for this to be the methodology of your approach. So it's not just by happenstance that this is the way that they can go out and win games, but absolutely you can have more of the onus now upon defense, special teams running the ball than it being on the offense, just running up and down the field, scoring on the constant because the defense is just kind of a sieve. So I think that's what you were asking on that, Vagabond. And yeah, I do think there's going to be a more variety of ways that you can win football games this year. I think there'll be games where the offense can carry some things. I think there's games where the defense can just essentially pitch a shutout, like a starting pitcher would almost, and just let your offense get by and, hey, a couple touchdowns and a field goal, and we got the game won. A little bit like that, like the first Cardinal game, for instance, Young, especially when you're playing in our stadium when the conditions are up as far as the inclement weather and whatnot, like that first Cardinal game where it was windy and wet. Neither offense was able to get much done. Defense was able to just put the clamps down completely on the Cardinals offense and allow for offense to only score, I think, 16 points in the day and get the dub. So I do think that will be the way it goes. But thank you, Young. Appreciate the donation. Nick says, I'm happy with what John did for the offensive line, but not thrilled. Think one of the other day 2 picks could have been used on interior offensive line, but glad we got Zabel and a better offensive coordinator in Kubiak. I think you encapsulate exactly, Nick, just my feelings on it. You know, I'm happy they got Zabel. I'm hopeful for the improvement. Would have liked to have gone a little bit more, but hopefully it's enough. Thomas says the interior offensive line wasn't great, and I understand not signing them, but Thuney was available, etc. Amen, man. That's where we come back to. Bears were able to make a trade, and we don't know about what trades are and aren't available when it comes to this stuff. We don't know what the cost would be. And I just off of hearing John talk about the offensive line so much and referencing so often overpaying. I think when it comes down to why we don't make a trade for another offensive lineman comes to the fact that he doesn't want to give up that extra pick. He thinks that he's getting fleeced by giving up that extra pick. I don't think he is, especially if he gets the right kind of guy to bring in here. But like you say, the Thuney trade shows deals can't be made for offensive linemen. It's not just simply free agency. It's willing to put out the resources. And we come back around to how much resources did we put out last year on that line? Some of the less of any NFL team in the league spend as little as anybody else on your offensive line last year. You pay for what you get. If you're going to pay the littlest amount of anybody in the NFL, you're probably going to have an offensive line that's not going to perform particularly well. I think it's pretty easy to see that the correlation between those two things. Nick says, I think we didn't go after Thuney because he's expensive and we have so many extensions needed to give out the next 2 off seasons. Maybe not. I think the age of it too was probably a bit of the factor there. He is 32 years old, so he's not a young spring chicken either, to your point on that. But it doesn't just have to be Thuney. It's more of like, rather than thinking of it being Thuney, think of it thinking of, there is guys out there available if you're willing to give up the assets for them, you know? But are you willing to give up the assets? I think by and large, it's a guess on my part for sure, but I just think that's where there wasn't a willingness there. King, I feel like we should still go after a guy like Will Hernandez. Cheap 1-year deals, see how bad the knee is, potentially a vet compared to the young guys, and maybe a competent starter if he can return from injury assurance. Yep, I'm open to it, man. He played solidly for the Cardinals. He is a right guard purely there, King, but I'm okay with kicking the tires on Will. See where the injury's at, see if the knee's coming along. I can see it. Seth says, you think we make a big signing before the season starts with our remaining cap space on the O-line? No, we probably make some kind of trade like a Wyatt Teller type where it's a real low-end kind of offensive lineman who would give you like a 64 PFF grade on the season, you know, just like a pure league average kind of guy that you give up some marginal cost for. I don't think there's a guy that's out there worth really signing. Maybe a Brandon Scherf would maybe be kind of a guy like you could think, here's an old guy, you're getting him from really dirt cheap. That was a tough one for me to see, though. But I think it'd be more of a trade at this point. But I do think, Seth, that the team seems to feel pretty good about their line where it stands right now. Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation, Garth. Appreciate all of your support, brother. I was watching a bodybuilding video the other night. Don't ask. One of the cats says he went through a $50,000 of steak in 1995. That is commitment. Yeah, the bodybuilders are interesting folks, man. I mean, it's an interesting deal doing the bodybuilder thing, especially the guys that go on the gear and the juice. And, you know, you look at like the price you have to pay for that. And, man, I just bless those guys. But that was always the hardest thing for me whenever I got into lifting weights. It wasn't the lifting of the weights, Garth, or being sore. The hardest part about when you start really getting in lifting weights is that you've got to eat so much damn food. You're just... You know, you're just sitting there, just half your life is chewing, especially if you eat that much steak. I mean, geez, it takes like 50 chews to just get a bite of steak down, especially if you got a tough cut of, and if you're spending $50,000, you're probably not getting fillets. So that is commitment, Garth. That is commitment. I can't eat that much, man. I can't do it. And boy, those guys seem to like wreck their bodies when they go that hard too. King Bomber, the other free agent guard from Arizona, had a decent year. Tristan Colon, something. I don't know too much about him. That one. Dogzilla says, what's more important than some blame game or excuses is what matters. The offensive line's got no solid vet help. You're leaning on youngsters, man. You're right. You're right. And that's where there's definitely a big opening here to be able to bring somebody in. At least you'd like to get some impact. You'd like to get better than average. But even to get an average guy in there just to kind of stable things down there could be beneficial if you can find that deal to be made at this time. Might have had to have made that earlier in the offseason if you were going to make it. Martin says, I just don't get the reluctance of John Schneider around the offensive line. A great offensive line will carry an above-average quarterback to a Super Bowl. A great quarterback doesn't usually drag a bad O-line to a Super Bowl. See 2025 Super Bowl. There you go, man. Yeah, great representation there with Mahomes struggling with the line he had in place. A little dinged up, not as talented as they'd been in recent years. And first, the Eagles that don't have a Mahomes, but have that grade A offensive line. And I don't kind of understand it as much ever on this one too, Martin. That's why I go back and referencing this as a 10-year thing where we can look at the micro view of this and we can look at the offseason and Will Freeze and Ryan Clark and, oh my gosh, you got the guy out of Chicago, Tevin Jenkins with his injury history. And man, that MRI must have looked horrible from Seattle's perspective, but that it's a 10-year issue that you've been dealing with this. And that it's a 10-year issue that you're dealing with on the back of when you go back at the beginning point of that 10-year period to when you went to a Super Bowl, that you have the highest paid offensive line in the sport. Where you unlearn this lesson for some weird kind of reason. And I don't quite get why. I don't. Thomas says, if I'm a GM trying to trade for Nelson, if I'm a GM, I'm trying to trade for Nelson, I'm going for teams who are deep with O-linemen and going after them. Right now, we're hoping that Zabel is good and Haynes develops. I'd love to be able to go get Quentin. I would, Thomas. I think you're going to have a hard time pulling him from the Colts' grasp, though, because the Colts just lost Ryan Clark this offseason and they lost Will Freeze. So you're already having to rebuild, two-thirds of your interior offensive line, and then to rebuild it 3/3 with a guy like Anthony Richardson going into year 3, that you have so much hope that this is the year that he's going to turn on. I don't think the Colts would be willing to make that move, even if you were willing to somewhat grossly overpay. Middle Dragon, does Seattle have the cap space to extend Cross and still have a chunk left over? I don't think they should wait. It'll only cost more. Metal Dragon, they've got the absolute money to spend right now to put on Cross on a contract extension. And then you would still have money left over, Metal. Yeah. First year cap hit will be pretty low with Cross on an extension because you can use the last year of his contract. You take down the base salary to a bare minimum, and then you got him in on the deal. And then you'd still have a gob of money left. So I think we're sitting on like $32 million right now, Metal Dragon. You sign him to a new year, $20 million a year deal. It's going to take you down to like $21 million of active cap space. But then you still have the Noah Fant deal where you could release him. I mean, you could sign essentially Charles Cross to an extension just by releasing Noah Fant and still have exactly the same amount of money sitting on the books. So they can do it. And I agree, they probably will do it too, on top of that. Brian says, wow, made it before the end. Caught me just below just as the gate starting to shut here, brother. Rain, Brandon, so what are your expectations for the defense this year? Above average or elite? I think that the defense is, no matter what, I would put them in a top 10 range of things. I think if the offense completely isn't great, if the offensive line collapses, this is going to definitely affect the defense. But let's just operate from the standpoint, Rain, that the offense is going to be functional. And if that's the case, then I would expect them to continue to take steps this offseason. So top 10 ranking minimum. And I think there certainly is an upside to this defense getting into top 5 range of things. You're returning all 11 starters. And then not just returning all 11 starters, it's kind of like you're returning all 13 starters. Because Jaron Reed isn't going to be a starter, but he's a real high-level, sixth man off the bench in basketball kind of guy. And then in Uchenna Nwosu, you have a guy that missed all last year who comes in to be your 4th edge. So you've got all starters returning. You've got depth returning. You've added a Nick Emmanwori in addition to the safety unit. I think that you have the potential to get to top 5 range, Rain. And top 10 is a minimum for me right now as it stands. King says Wilson might be a scheme fit, but so is Jalen Sundle. And I think Olu can move a lot more than people think. Wilson's rookie. Oh, you're talking to somebody else up there. Dogzilla says, I hope we aren't overrating Kubiak's staff. Everyone points to them as being what will somehow fix everything. We're leaning on a lot of that, Dogzilla. And I'm with you on this. It's not ideal to be leaning all on this young coach coming in as the first year coach to fix it all. It's not ideal. But the team feels very strongly in how they've communicated to us throughout the course of this offseason that this is how they feel about it. I'm not saying I feel this way about it. I'm not saying everybody else out there feel it. But the organization has indicated with absolute lack of hesitancy, with absolute lack of, with complete certainty, that this is where they're going to hedge all of their bets. We'll learn and come to find out, Dogzilla, if it isn't. And if it isn't, like I've said on this, for the folks that are like yourself, a little bit worried about where the offensive line's at, and maybe this is, I will be right there with all of you guys jumping on John for ignoring it another offseason. I said that coming into this offseason. I'll say it again through this year. I'm not giving him a pass at this. I'm explaining of what I think will be where this goes, but I'll be right there along with you guys in saying that we're fed up with this, that this is the BS, and that his excuses ring empty and hollow when you have spent this amount of time ignoring this positional group on a yearly basis. So I can sense, Dogzilla, your frustration there with it. I can sense many of others' frustration, and I'm right there with you guys on it. Don't let the frustration override intelligent decision-making. Don't let the frustration override that you're not bringing in a Waldron as a first-time offensive coordinator, that you're not bringing in Grubb as a first-time NFL offensive coordinator, that you're getting somebody with a track record, not simply somebody with a track record, but who's building a coaching staff that's got a track record. Because that's what both of those two coaches kind of brought in addition to that too, in a large part. Not all the way around, but to a degree, you're also then bringing in supplemental coaches that aren't exactly up to snuff. So I get the frustration here. I really do. But at the same point in time, this isn't the same thing as what you've done in the past. And every move is different unto itself. And every move you've got to analyze unto itself and say, okay, what does this move encapsulate fully? What does this guy bring fully? What is his background? How is he driven philosophy-wise? How does that philosophy-wise drive to what you've got for the talent in-house? And you pair it all together. But yeah, I get the frustration here, and I can certainly sense it from you, Dogzilla, and a couple other folks that are at their wits' end, and they're done with it. And I've heard through it throughout this offseason, and I'm with you guys on that too with it. But the team has made their choice on this, and I'm not a person that's going to say that I ever will appeal to authority and say, well, the authority is telling us this, but we got to let it play out at this point. And can't jump the gun, I think, on that until we can see how it does play out to jump on it with 2 feet or not. But that he got the instant returns last year from the Saints team, I think for some of those folks like yourself that are frustrated on this, I feel like there's sometimes a little bit of coloring in on that Saints situation of that and not understanding what he did there and how hard that is for a first-time coordinator to come into a situation that's not been going great and to get it to play great instantaneously. I understand the level of competition wasn't good and the injuries came up and it's a small sample size and we can kind of spin through circles on this over and over on that. But it just comes down to this is not the same kind of hire of what you've done prior. So there is reason for optimism there. But that's that nuanced place we get to, whereas where we got the reason for optimism, there still is, of course, the little bit of the, yeah, but you didn't add on the talent in addition to that. Yeah, you didn't go out and sign anybody in free agency in addition to it. So it's where it gets complicated. And we just got to let this thing kind of settle all out. But I promise you, Dogzilla, I think that this is, I'm getting a sense of this, and I can give you guys some reinforcement. If my sense of this is we walk into this and this offensive line collapse, like I think you're worried about, others above us on this chat are worried about, and they're desperately worried about that, I will be lighting him up. I will light John up. There's not going to be a free pass here. But that I'm also not just trying to jump to that point, right? I want to see this go that way first before I get to that stage of things because they've done things smartly this offseason in a lot of degrees. Would have liked to see more. Would have liked to have seen him go for more offensive line, but you've done a lot of other things here that have been smart and not just simply getting Kubiak, getting Benton. It's getting guys that have a track record of knowing how to teach NFL offensive linemen how to play this damn position. And that you haven't had that as much here in the past. Tom Cable couldn't make the transition once the cut blocking got taken out. It took the teeth out of his ability to teach offensive linemen, whether it was here in Seattle or whether it was out there in Vegas. Couldn't do it in either place. Had a hard time of then even evaluating offensive linemen coming out of college because of the spread concepts. So a quality offensive line coach, a quality offensive coordinator. These are not things that we exactly have had here in Seattle in recent years, in my opinion. It's left one. So that part's not just been improved by a little bit, in my opinion, Dogzilla. It's been improved, I think, in a pretty wide margin here from my outlook of it. But I promise you, I'm not giving anybody a pass on this. I won't, you guys know with this on this, that if we get in the season and it's all on Zabel and Zabel sucks and you got nothing at center and right guard doesn't come forward, I'll hammer John as hard as I've ever hammered him on this with it. But let's at least get to the place of it playing out too before we, let these worries and concerns totally get, I think, overstated a bit. We're going to kind of put a bit of a wrap up here too, guys. We're a little over a couple hours in, so we're going to kind of put a button on this here pretty soon. I'll get the last couple questions in. I do make sure, guys, if you've got a question, we got a lot of discussion in chat here. So if you have a question, just make sure you post on that. Brian says, Benton is the key. O-line goes in the top 20 IMO. Well, that's it. And it may seem like to Dogzilla, I'm kind of passing off the coaching on this, but coaching is a big part of this. I think coaching is a huge part of this. I think the players come out and that there's in talent and all the structure of that, there's similarities there. But we look at the lines that are developed through the years. Look at New England with Scarmecchia through the years and how many different offensive linemen he developed there. And it wasn't like New England was necessarily throwing first round picks at the problem over and over again. He was getting it done at times with kind of diamonds in the rough the Eagles offensive line coach there, Howard Mudd, through the years and what he brought. Benton is a guy that's got a very similar, to your point, Brian, reputation in that way. And that it's not you just bring in a whatever offensive line coach, but you bring in a guy with a track record of being able to develop guys. And even looking what he did last year, and that the techniques and what you do with this offense, understanding that the offense at the forefront of what you're trying to do, which then helps your offensive line coaches and helps your offensive linemen, is the same unpredictability I talk about on the defensive side, you apply to the offense. And what was an issue last year we saw with the offense? Part of the issue with Grubb is that he didn't sequence plays. He didn't really hide his hand. What you saw was what you were going to get. I think I saw that they never, when they were ever under center, they never ran the ball under center. So you always knew it was going to be play action last year under Grubb. This is completely the other end of the scale with the Saints, where they're going to show you the same play over and over again with the same formation. And they're doing it inherently to make sure that your defense has to be on its heels and not on its toes prior to the snap. That they have to think for a beat post-snap rather than just running like hell to the play, knowing right where the play is going to go. And don't undersell how much that can completely foobar a play if I've got both of the linebackers and a safety drive into an outside zone run because they can see it's an outside zone run the second that you broke from the huddle. And so there's a lot of little details in how to hide the plays and make everything look similar. It gets very intricate, this scheme, into making sure you're kind of cloak and dagger in what you show prior to the post-snap. Whereas I think in sometimes here, we've had other times, I've heard with like Charles Cross, that there was times with him in his stance where you could predict whether it was pass or run with him in the old schemes and systems. So this stuff goes out the door now. And now you're trying to inherently drive prior to the snap. You don't know what we're going to do. You've got to react to it post-snap. You've got to play it legitimate straight up. You can't cheat as a defense against this version of the Seahawks offense. Prior Seahawks offenses, I think you could cheat like a mofo. I think you could cheat constantly because disguising, hiding, that really wasn't the intentions of our offense prior. I mean, Coach Carroll barely would run to the outside. A and B gaps. A and B gaps. How did the cover two shell stop the let Russ cook movement? Because you had no adjustments beyond trying to throw it deep. You had nothing built in now as far as short passing concepts to take advantage of the defense dropping to such depth in zone. So when the offensive line issues have been a 10-year problem, but that's where it's a talent problem, yes. But this is where we look for the one bullet answer, the simplicity. Well, it's all on this, or it's all on this, or it's all on this, where it can not be, well, it's partly this, and it's partly this, and it's partly this. It's been partly that you've not drafted particularly a lot of offensive linemen high up in the draft and put the draft capital you need. And especially when you compound that with the fact that you're spending as little money as anybody else over the last 10 years when it comes to the offensive line has met out a pretty untalented offensive line. And then you have paired that with offensive play callers who don't sequence very well, who don't hide their intentions to the defense very well, who put that offensive line at times in huge predicaments as far as not helping them out much as far as pass protection goes. How many years did I scream and whine about the fact that you would just refuse to double team Aaron Donald? You kept trying to single block him with one guard over and over again, and not a particularly talented guard at that. And you just hope that guy could hold on out there rather than dedicating some resources to stopping him and not letting him just wreck your whole game plan. So this to me is an offense that is thinking more smarter and to a great degree. And that it's, yes, the talent has been a problem, but let's not undersell as well the coaching part of this problem as well. And coaching problem being not just the coordinator, but those offensive line coaches. We have not had guys in here. Did Dickerson come in with Waldron? Can you guys think of Dickerson? Anybody that he got brought in here who he brought along further in his time here? I mean, Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, really good players right from the jump. I don't think that was as much Waldron. Those guys were good coming out the box. Those guys you could see at college would be good probably coming out the box. But does Olu develop? Did Bradford really develop? Not really. No. They kind of were about what they were. I think in Benton, that track record's legit, Brian, to your point. And he's got actually a background in getting this done. Brian, Josh Jones is an upgrade over Forsythe. Forsythe might be the worst backup tackle in the league, though, too. Dogzilla says, we spent all offseason talking about the need for properly upgrade the offensive line, and for whatever, maybe forgivable reasons, it simply didn't happen. Yeah, you definitely wanted to upgrade it more than you did. That's for sure. The first round pick on Zabel is one that let's not completely gloss over that though too. That's the highest you've taken a guard in your history going back to Hutchinson. And that is a a major difference from where John's been. And whether Gray is going to fit in at left guard or fit in at center, he's going to fit in and he's going to start day one and he's going to play pretty good, I would say, day one. Not maybe dominant, but an improvement, I would say, Dogzilla, whether it's center or left guard, beyond what you've had there prior. The Christian Haynes fitting better to the zone system is, while it is a leap, and it asks people to go, okay, look, he's more pass protector. He's never going to be a high-end run blocker, but he was a pretty good run blocker with Connecticut when he was able to be more in a zone-based centric system, where he's not having to take a guy and drive him off the ball 3 yards, but he can angle block and he can kind of mirror block and shift himself around a little bit and kind of use a little bit more finesse in his approach as a run blocker rather than it being about pure power. But it's also completely valid on your part to look at this team and say, look, this needed more talent. This needed more talent. Would have been good if you could have done the talent, the Kubiak, the Benton, bring it all together and really have high potential there for that group, rather than really the potentiality of this group right now as far as the highest end for this offensive line is probably like top 15-ish range. Like that's about as high as you can probably drive this thing for where the talent is, for how young the talent is. But at the same point in time, you did some things. You made some moves. You improved your offensive line coach better beyond anything you've had here over the last 15 years. You have the best offensive coordinator that you have in place here since going back to probably Mike Holmgren. So those are improvements. And I do really feel that way about Kubiak. I mean, there's a reason, Dogzilla, when people were asking me about who I wanted as our offensive coordinator, I didn't have 10 names. I had one name for you guys. One name for you guys. Clint Kubiak. That was my guy the whole way through. And it was for good reason, because he was going to check those boxes I wanted to see checked for the next offensive coordinator you're going to bring in. There wasn't the question marks that existed with him that there were going to exist with other guys you were going to try, including the guy that you had in-house in Grubb. But I hope it doesn't seem like I'm kicking out the point that you're trying to make as well, being that, look, end of the day, Gray Zabel, Josh Jones, league worst offensive line unit last year. Is that significantly upgrading that? Is that taking that real far from where it was? No, it's not. No, it's not. Thomas says Kubiak will improve the offensive line a lot more than people think. There was a strategic decision that tells me there is a plan. I do feel like there is a plan here, and the team is trusting in that to be the case. And I'm going to lean into this a little bit and thinking that this can be a bit of where it goes, especially as some of this comes up to me for as well, Dogzilla, trying to think about this offensive line situation more and more throughout the offseason, trying to understand John's perspective and hear what he's got to say on it, and trying to also look around league-wide and understanding some of these offensive lines and the good ones that have been built. And yes, the good ones that have been built, like the Eagles, are ones that have been built by putting in the assets and dropping prime real estate into it to make it what it is. But it has also been, when you see with those teams, is that they do have the coaching there in addition to it. And that there have been the teams that have been able to put together good offensive lines with great coaching without always putting as much assets into the line as other teams would put. But it's the question on this offense. It's even more so, I think, than the Darnold factor. And Darnold's a huge question in himself. But I think that the offensive line and where it stands right now is even a bigger one. Where is this thing going to click in? Do you really have enough guys? Do you really have a good enough talent? Is it going to be the limiting factor on this team as it's been so often in 10 years prior? King Bombers, I mean, in the previous years, the only thing we did was sign Lincoln Tomlinson. It's true. Why you lost Damian Lewis, right? Because a lot of people blame Grubb for the O-line problem. I think he had a big part of it. I do. Throwing 70% of the time, for instance, that's not going to help your offensive line. When you're under center and you're operating so much from spread concepts and shotgun, and then you go under center and you're not going to run the ball under center, but you're going to play action 95, 96% of the time, you start to build a lot of things into defenses being able to predict what you're going to do. And when you make yourself predictable offense or defensively, highly predictable at that, you're giving the opposition a huge advantage to take you apart. I don't think it's the end all be all, like you say, Space. A lot of people said it was all with Grubb, that it was all this or all that, as far as the line goes. But I think it's a bit of both. He definitely could have used some more talent out there. Could have Grubb a Laken Tomlinson type who's more of a run blocker than a pass protector going into a spread concept that's going to throw the ball 70% of the time is not ideal. That is not ideal. But I think you're going to avoid that this year. And certainly not going to be getting by. Joseph Miller says, based off how everyone reacted, I figured Gray Zabel was a Jody pick. John didn't seem too happy about it at the time. they did seem a little bit kind of lukewarmish in that moment. I felt like a little bit of it too with Joseph was I think that the first round just caught them off guard. I don't think that they saw Michael Williams, Kenneth Grant, and Ted Arroyo McMillan all going up ahead of their picks. Oh, and Booker. Let me throw Booker on top of that, Joseph, because they did say that they had Booker as their highest rated guard in this draft in the press conference. So I think John kind of got to that spot and he's like, man, 4 of our guys went off the board that we didn't expect to be off the board. We thought one of these 4 would be here when we picked, and we were going to then take that guy. So I think that they were on to a little bit of a consolation prize at that point. I don't know that for sure, just a guess. Dogzilla says Grubb tried to run both zone blocking and gap with these guys and gave up. I don't know if I'd ever go to a place, Dogzilla, of really feeling like Grubb stayed super committed to the running game throughout the course of the season. I think he ran the ball begrudgingly. I don't think that he really stayed dedicated to it enough to determine that the zone scheme wasn't working. The best stuff they did last year was gap. That was their best stuff. But I don't think that they ran I don't think zone was like something that he ran a lot of. I guess understanding too with this dog, you threw the ball 70% of the time. And you do have multiple moments last year where publicly your head coach was asking for your offensive coordinator to run the ball and to be more dedicated at running the ball throughout the course of the games. And so there's just a little bit in Grubb from what I saw, and it's just my perspective on it. It does seem like Macdonald kind of shared this perspective. I think Grubb wanted to throw the ball, and I think that he ran the ball begrudgingly. And we come back to predictability and that when you're going to do that, defenses are going to start to realize you're doing that, and they're going to start to lean in, taking away your passing, and now your passing is going to be less effective because you're not running the ball as much as anything else, and there's no threat of running the ball. I'm not saying that we ran block like great last year, Dogzilla, or that we were monsters in that way, and certainly some of the injuries that hit your offensive line, Lucas out for most of the year, Connor Williams spending half the year coming back along from that injury and then deciding to suddenly retire. Having a Laken Tomlinson there that's not really, take even a Laken Tomlinson, for instance, in the scheme, Dogzilla, you sign that guy and he's a immobile, not a mover in space. Grubb system wants a little bit more moving in space from the offensive lineman. It just wasn't really well put together there with it. But when an offensive coordinator, you're throwing the ball for a team that won 10 games and you're throwing the ball 70% of the time, I think there's a little bit more room there to find some more dedication to the run to determine that it couldn't be more successful, with it. But Zabel versus Laken and movability at the left guard position and athleticism and climbing to the second level, not to mention just being a better player. I think you're an upgrade there minimum on that part. Metal Dragon, I'm definitely hyped up for Torrey Horton, man. He's going to look good, I think. So I could be misremembering King Bomber, the press conference, but I thought that they said in the press conference they had Booker higher than him. But I don't have the video up in front of me right now, but I was pretty sure I heard them say that in the press conference. But never know. Could have sworn that that's what I heard. I could swear. King Bomber, go back and watch it if you get a chance on when they draft him, because I think that they did let that out of the bag in that presser. Hank says, yeah, I think Horton's fire. People think Kupp will replace Metcalf. I think it's actually Horton and MVS. They'll replace Metcalf and Kupp. Will replace Tyler Lockett. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think Kupp is as much of an X receiver, but to your point, MVS is an X, and Horton can definitely play X. So I would expect that to be more of the transition too there. Kupp more goes into the Z/slot role. Martin says, Hawksnest, this is my week 1 starting O-line. Cross, Sable, Sundell, Haynes, Lucas. What do you think? Looks good to me. Looks great to me, man. I can definitely see Sundell taking it over. Come back to athleticism, quickness, be able to pull out in front. You go back, watch that Charbonnet run against the Packers. I mean, we're speaking to a little bit of, you want an example of Grubb last year with the lack of commitment to running game and how confounding it was at times. Go back to that second half game in the Packers, a game that's a pretty close game, absolutely refusing to run the ball. You run it once there with Charbonnet, you bust off a 40-yard run, and on that 40-yard run, by the way, Martin, you had Sundell playing center that game, pulling out in front, laying the key block to spring Charbonnet for that 40, 50-yard run. But then, of course, you have Sam Howell brought back on the field, and Howell throws it like 13 straight times or something like that in a game that was pretty close. In a game where you could have gone to the run game a little bit more. I mean, that was one of the biggest examples of the games last year of ones where just, Grubb, what are you doing? Like, do you hate running the ball? Are you styling on Mike because he asked you to run the ball? Is this your like childlike way of getting back at him? Like, here, take that. Stevens says, great show, Brando. I'm out in Michigan. Have a good one there, Steven. Thank you for checking out the show today, man. Hope all is well out there in Michigan. I bet the weather's getting great this time of year out there. Nick Grubb was in over his head and never should have been hired in the first place. John did it as a favor for a friend. Yeah, just more of a college coordinator, which isn't a bad thing. Grubb's going to be a great college coordinator. Maybe one day you can develop to be a pro coordinator, but I didn't see it from him last year. His lack of motion, his lack of hiding anything. I mean, just it felt like defenses knew what was coming time and time again. And that doesn't come down to a lack of talent at that point. That doesn't come down to offensive line, or that comes down to your coach and the play calling and not being particularly great at it. I think too with the Grubb, somebody was saying this last year much smarter than me about this, which is that he was a guy that was calling plays for mismatches and to attack mismatches rather than calling plays as you need to do in the NFL level for coverages. College, you can attack mismatches. You've got the wider hash marks. You can isolate guys. At the pro level, you have to attack actually coverages and beat coverages. I think that was one of the places that was kind of the problematic spot for him in addition to a couple of other areas. Max says, I think we looked a little sad because we couldn't trade back. Also, I think they were bent their rules a little to take Zabel because it was what we need, not the top of their board. I think you're right, Max. Yeah. I think I feel the same kind of way on it. King says, I remember the press conference. They said they were worried that Zabel would go because they didn't expect Booker to go as high as he did. I'll go double check and let you know, though. Okay. I appreciate that. I could be misremembering it. I'm in the middle of King Bomber at that point, 3 days of the stream, and so I'm definitely head spinning. I could be. I just remember why it's sticking out to me, King Bombers. I remember feeling at the time like, whoa, he just kind of dropped a detail there. You know, he just sort of dropped a nugget I wasn't expecting there. But I could have heard it wrong too. It's possible. Specifically corrects the reporter and says they think he's an excellent player, but their target was Zabel. Okay. King says, I was a huge fan of this draft approach. Was pretty glad they didn't take a receiver on day 2 that a lot of people expected, and you got Horton and White on day 3, who were expected to go much higher. Love those two guys, man. Great value at the wide receiver position in this draft. They absolutely found the right value. Instead of grabbing the guy they got a guy should have gone probably a round or 2 earlier than he did on both of those two accounts, to your point. I'm hopeful for each, man. Glad you're hyped up, though, on this draft. Dogzilla, we had some success running the ball okay in the second half of the second card games. Rest of the time, the running backs were getting nailed in the backfield. Indeed, one of the big issues that you had in this season last year was how soon guys were hitting your running backs. I think that the Eagles were like 3 yards. The running backs went and they led the league before they were hit. Whereas with Seattle, I think that they averaged like 0.3 yards or something like that before contact. And so there's a lot of penetration. But then Dogzilla, that comes back to, again, where we go to simplistic, or is there extra reasons in situations? So you could look at penetration in the backfield, Dogzilla, and you could say, well, your offensive linemen aren't good enough. They're getting their ass whooped right off the snap. And there's people in the backfield and they're tackling your running back. But then there's another way to look at it and say, are they getting into the backfield? Are they attacking because they're able to predict based on the film study and the simplistic nature of your offense what you're calling prior to the play? So rather than player A having to process post-snap what you're doing, he's already processed post-snap what you're doing prior to the snap. And so now he's got like that extra step to get to the spot and beat that man. And that extra half step that you get sometimes is the difference between you winning or losing a rep. And I would say that on a lot of those plays, when you look at the running game and you look at the penetration and you look at the multiple guys penetrating on a single given play, that a lot of those plays were predictable and that the defenses knew what was coming. They knew it was coming from a mile away at times. And that's a little bit of a representation of a college coordinator coming to the pro level and not quite used to that level of intelligence on the opposite side. A guy that can go up against, teams week in and week out where he's isolating mismatches and he can just take advantage of those. I'm not going to say it's all on that, Dogzilla. I'm just trying to get that place of nuance with this where it's like, look, it's kind of multiple factors here that cause that thing to happen. It ain't simply the offensive lineman getting his ass whooped. It's also that your play calling got so predictable about what you were going to do when you were going to do it, when you were going to run, when you were going to pass. It just felt like you were showing your hand prior to the snap over and over and over again. And Zabel will take time, Dogzilla. You're right about that. I will say the thing that does give me hope was able, though, or hope was able, Dogzilla, is you have a guy in, Cody Mock who got into the Tampa Bay and he played pretty quickly, pretty fast, well for Tampa Bay right from the jump. Zabel coming from the same college program that's produced some pretty good offensive linemen recently. But then above that, the guy's got like 3,000 snaps on his career. So a guy that, may be able to walk in and actually be able to play pretty solidly from the jump, partly because he's got a little bit of a rich history of playing a lot. And that has allowed him to be able to be a little more refined than you might typically see from guys that are rookies like him. But like Zay is still a rookie. Yeah, running back was another good value pick. King Bomb, you're right. Martinez getting him in the 7th, just crazy. Mills, Cable do. Good picks too, Martin. 100%. Yeah, Dogzilla, I think Horton's ability to contribute this year is going to be very high. I think he slides into becoming minimum your punt returner day one. It just, there's his initial role right out the jump. But I do agree with like some of the other folks are saying in the chat here where he eventually probably ascends to being your X receiver. Marquez Valding will be more of your kind of deep guy that you use here and there and mix him in a bit. But this is a guy you can use as an X, I think, and especially if he's healthy and back and full to go. I mean, there's legit reason to believe that in a draft that's got a lot of potential steals, you get 2nd round pick on an Emmanwori. Martin's mentioning Riley Mills, as you got Aaron the 4th, Damian Martinez in the 7th round. We may come to find out of this draft that the greatest value pick we got, that the true sleeper in this draft of any of our picks turns into Torrey Horton. That is not an empty prediction at all. This kid, 2,000-yard seasons, has the injuries pop up this year that reduce him down a little bit, but was legitimate on tape. I mean, he's out there smoking Will Johnson, the Michigan Wolverines, in his 2023 season. He's taking the top off him on the deep, just running right past him in the year where he was absolutely outstanding and the knee wasn't factoring in as much. Horton's great. He's gonna be a good player for us. And boy, you hear that coach talk. We were doing this show on Horton a couple weeks ago, and I played that cut there of the coach talking about him, and he's like, he's my favorite. I mean, the coach was just could not be more effusive. King says, by the way, Brandon, check out 15 minutes into that interview. I think the confusion is that he was referring to Zabel, the number 1 guy, and not Booker. Okay, I might have misheard it too. Definitely possible. I'll go back and check it out for sure. If I had the time, I heard him saying it, but stuff's being speaking fast, and they're talking about 2 different guys and bouncing back and forth between it. So it'd be cool if the reporters, but it sounds like there was a clarity question that was answered. So I'll check on it and I'll get back to you on that one there, King Bomber, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, we're a couple hours in. I went a little longer today than normal, but that's all right. I told you guys we'll do that eventually every once in a while here, kind of mix it up a little bit. I completely understand. We kind of got off the free safety look, talk about offensive linemen today. I don't know how we got down this lens. But I do get the skepticism out there a little bit towards the offensive line. I think people are very worried about it. It's been a problem for years here now. And maybe John reinforced it here prior to training camp. But in many ways, even beyond Darnold or what you do at wide receiver position or tight end or running back, this offensive line and whether it can come forward or not will, as much as anything, dictate the successes of this season as anything else. I think that the defense is going to be a top 10 defense. Defense has a potential of sliding to becoming a top 5 defense. But if your offensive line is a sieve, your offensive line collapse like it's collapsed many times over the past 10 years, that might not make a whole hell of a lot of a difference, because we've learned over the years that even if you have a dominant defense, that you're going to get a defense that can glide you through some games, that can squeeze some wins out when the offense ain't able to roll because the line's crap like that. But you do know that eventually adds up, and those 3 and outs and those 3 and outs and those 3 and outs from offenses that happen incessantly eventually lead to a defense, even if it's super strong, starts to wear down a little bit, starts to get a little bit tired. And then they start to give up points and yards and longer drives. And then it all starts to really collapse in. So yeah, the defense is going to be good. Yeah, the defense is going to roll. This offensive line's got to hold up. It's got to hold up for this team to find success this year. It can't just be that the defense throws the offense up on its back and it's like, we're going to carry you through this. As much as the defense has come forward the past couple of years, it's not come forward that far. You got to still have the offense that's able and capable of keeping things balanced, especially when it comes to, at the bare minimum, keeping the play clock balanced up to what you're doing defensively. That's also the benefit here of what we get with the Kubiak system. Whether it's the most explosive offense in the NFL or throwing points up on the board constant, what it is going to try to do inherently in its philosophy is grind out drives, get you some first downs over the course of the drives, keep that time of possession relatively equal. So at the very least, you're making sure that you can keep your defense fresh and able to get on the field performing at their best throughout the whole course of the game. I do think that whether or not we're going to be better offensively, we will be improved in that standpoint of things, and that should make the offense as a whole, at least generally, a little bit better. Offensive line still is going to need to come forward in that way, no doubt there. I'm not pushing back any of that. Zabel, rookie, he's been the biggest swing of what you've done, and it kind of all rides on his shoulders, this thing coming forward, and Haynes being better in his second year than he was in second, in his own system. We'll see. We'll see. It's going to be the question on this team this year, and it's one that has me as much worried about you guys. I may not seem worried in how I'm speaking about it, and that I'm having faith in Kubiak. I'm having faith in Benton, but it's there with me too. And looking at this team and going, boy, I am concerned though. I am a little bit worried about how it stands right now. So totally get it. Totally get it. Keen Bomber says, because he said that he'd rather not talk about Booker, but he was our number one guy. I'll watch the press conference to get the full. Oh, that was probably what I confused it. And that he was speaking to Zabel on it, but he said number one. That's probably what I got caught up on, was I heard him say number one guy right after he said Booker. But he was kind of cross-referencing Zabel as he said it then. That makes sense. Yeah. I can see how I got confused on that then. Because I was wondering a little bit when they said that at the time with Booker. I was like, really? Booker, with the lack of mobility, you had him higher than Zabel? It didn't add up to me at the time with it either. So that makes it make a lot more sense there, King. That definitely adds up a little bit more. Nick, have a great night. Being 12s. Thank you, Nick. I really thank you guys for watching it. Ooh, let's go. Appreciate you though, Nick. Me coming in. My man, me coming in with $100 donation. Me. Let's go. Let's go, me. Woo. Woo. I'll wake you up, huh? I'll wake you up. Woke my cat up on that one. Well, me, thank you for that. I really appreciate you for that $100 donation. You're very kind, as you've been so many times throughout this year and a long period of time here at the channel. Thank you for that, man. $100 drop. Let's go. He says, sup, B? It's been a minute. Glad to see you. It has been a minute, man. It's good to have you in the house. Wishing a happy Monday to you and all the 12s. Hope everyone is doing well. Go Hawks. F the Niners. I think so. Laughing out loud. Yeah, I want to just say F the Niners. Haven't had a chance to say that yet today. Oh, the Niners. Gotta say it. Gotta say it. But thank you, man, for that. I'm having a great Monday over here. Got some beautiful weather. Got the sun coming out. Hopefully you guys in the Pacific Northwest are finally starting to get your sun coming out. It's about June. You guys start to get the consistent sunshine starting to come around your way, and then it turns into the most beautiful place on earth throughout the whole summer. So hopefully you guys are getting to enjoy some of that. I thank you, man, for the $100 donation and having a great Monday here. We got a jam-packed lineup of shows ready for you guys this week. We're going to be talking about Sam Darnold and the keys to getting the best out of Sam Darnold here. So we're going to be talking a little bit about him. Got a bit of Witherspoon discussion, the necessity on stopping the run. I played that Nate Tice cut at the top of the show, and I think it's going to factor in very hugely into how you defend the run this year, is how you defend 12 personnel, how you defend 22 personnel, how you defend 3 tight end looks. Stopping the run out of those looks, how you do that is going to dictate and determine a lot of the successes for not only all defenses in the NFL this year, but specifically our Seahawks defenses, because if you're able to do that, stop those guys on early rundowns, get them into the third and longs, and now that's where the real flavor of Mike Macdonald comes out. That's where you get the spice. That's where you get the extra little garnishments in there as far as the simulated pressures and the stunts and the loops and the wildly different coverages and the 3 safety looks, which we talked about today. You get to mix it all together and throw it at the offenses and just leave them spinning in utter confusion. So we'll be looking at that throughout the course of this week. We're going to be going hard in that way. A couple more weeks of shows as well through June. Right at the end of June, we'll probably be doing a little bit of a tiny break as we're leading up into the season there. But we're going to keep this going throughout the offseason. And the guy's been helping us get this through this offseason is me with these big, huge $100 dono drops like he's been dropping here lately, helping out this channel, helping us just plug along here through this offseason in the dead of the offseason, as they say. And I know there's no dead offseason with you guys. You guys have been here with me every step of the way. I thank you guys for hanging with me throughout this whole offseason and staying engaged, staying clipped into this team. We don't know where this team's going to end up this year, but there's a lot of potential this year, and they have stacked a lot of young talent over the last couple of years. So if this is the year where this finally all sparks come to life and the fire starts to take form, you guys have been here with me every step of the way, ready for this to just inject and take that fully form that we're looking at, fully final form that we've been waiting for to come in, and then have a Super Bowl window start to crack back open once again. Wouldn't that be nice to see? Wouldn't that be nice to have again? I think it would be. We're due. We're due here. We've gone through 10 years of waiting for a winner again. Yeah, we got our Super Bowls back to back. Yeah, we almost had a dynasty, but we've been waiting a little bit of time now for this team to come back forward and to make us excited again to be able to root for them and to see some real true upside potential with this team that can go out there and play with any big dog in this sport. They're setting the stage. I don't know if this season's the year that will happen. I'm hopeful it will, but I think the team is moving in the right direction. It's not perfect, but they're moving smartly and they're moving in the right direction. And you do those two things and you put them together. To me, it feels like only a matter of time before you're putting the right just ingredients together to make this thing fully form and set free. Me, you are awesome for that monster donation. Garth with multiple donations. Roy Froelich, Young Vagabond, Martin Lawrence. I really thank you guys. Robbie Red as well. Thomas Cox, you guys are awesome. Awesome with all of your support you guys have given throughout this offseason, helping us get on through, helping the lights stay on here at the Hawks Nest as we move through the offseason. And some folks check out, hey, you're watching baseball. Can't blame you for that. How about the Mariners making some things happen? Good to see. Maybe they even make a trade deadline deal here this season. My hopes are too high on that one. But we will be back throughout the course of this week, all week long. We got 4 more shows lined up for you. We'll be on Sunday for members of the channel, be doing a members-only call-in show / just having some open discussion. So if you want to pop in on that, I will be getting that link out today for you guys. We'll also be doing a reminder link on Sunday just to let you guys know on that day. So keep an eye on your community post if you're a member of the channel, as that's where I will be getting that link put in there, as we'll be keeping that going all through the off-season for members of the channel. Other than that, I think we're good to go on that. I thank you guys for hanging in with me today. We got almost 3 hours in today. You guys had some great discussion today. I love this offensive line talk. I really do. I know that there's going to be some disagreement on this between me and others having more worries than me or me having more worries. I think it's rightful to have any kind of source of worry on it. But I do love this discussion, as it's so very important to what this team is going to be and where they're going to go this upcoming season and their potential, and whether this is still going to take an extra year to get to the injection point where you're truly a contender, or whether this can actually happen this year. Really, the onus is on that line. The onus is on Benton, your offensive line guru, to come in here and fix this group. The onus is on a Gray Zabel to come forward. The onus is on a Haynes to not be as bad as he was in his rookie year, to be a better fit for a pure zone system. We'll see if it comes to be. The talent is there. A lot of hard work to be done to get it to go. But you guys are right to worry about this. You're right to wonder about this, because this is really where the key is going to be landing on this team coming forward. The defense will be better. I think the special teams will be better and will be an impactful part of the team. Can the offense hold up their end of the bargain? Can Darnold come back and show that he wasn't a flash in the pan season last year in the most perfect of an ideal environments, where you have maybe the best wide receiver in the sport to throw to, and a pretty good offensive line, a great offensive coordinator, and a great defense on the other side that's doing their things. Whereas now you've got some of those working in your favor this year, but can you still sustain the same performance? We'll see. A lot of questions, but a lot of potential with this team, and it's going to be very exciting here, breaking it all down with you guys as we go throughout this offseason and starting a training camp now. About a little over a month and a half away here. We're almost there, folks. We're almost at the end of this process. I thank you guys for watching today. Quick little couple of other notes for you guys. We do have the meetup happening. I've been mentioning here, and I've got the link down in the video below, down in the description section below. We're doing an NFC West Roundtable meetup. I do the NFC West Roundtable channel. It's a whole separate channel where I get on there with content creators of the Rams, Niners, Cardinals. We chop it up there about every week. We're kind of in and out through the offseason over there right now, but we're going to be doing it every week during the season, of course. And we're going to be doing a meetup this year. So I think it's October 4th. We're going to be doing a Rams 49ers meetup in LA. If you want to come down from Seattle and meet up, we're going to be doing a night before bar meetup. We're going to be doing a tailgating before the game. And then when you pay for the tickets there at time, it's a $300 price, but that also gets you the tickets to the game, all kind of included on that package a little bit. If you want to join me there, I'd look forward to having a couple of other Hawk fans in there. Otherwise, I might be the only Seattleite in there. And I am absolutely, by the way, my goal is going to be to, because it's Niner fans tailgating, So my hope is to get a shot where I'm going to be down there, maybe rocking Seahawks colors. And I'm going to do a selfie. I'm going to tell all the Niner fans to just flip me off behind me. So I have them all just give me the bird right behind me. I think it'd be a cool shot. But I'm looking forward to that. I mean, you have to just wade into enemy territory where I'm just between Niner and Rams fans are rocking a hard place on that one. But you can join me with that if you want on that side of it. I thank you guys for watching today. If you could for me, do me that favor. It does help out the channel tremendously. Just hitting that like button if you could for me. I would really appreciate it, as it does help me grow, helps me show up on the algorithm on other places and other channels and whatnot for them looking for that kind of stuff. I caught the end of the stream. Sorry, HHG. Caught me right at the end of the deal there. You know what I mean? Sorry. We'll get you in there tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow, though, at 12 o'clock. So we'll be going on again all throughout the week here. And again, HHG, we got the members channel on Sunday, so we'll catch you on with that too as well. I do thank you guys again for watching today. See what this Hawks team does. A lot of question marks, but a lot of potential. Don't forget that part. Question marks there. Worries, concerns there. Potential, absolutely there as well. You are 3 years removed from one of the greatest trades in NFL history with the Russell Wilson trades and all of the returns you got back from that. You've cleared bad money off the books with the Jamal Adams contract last year, and it's free and clear. You've set the money up really well into the future. You're in a position right now with $31 million of cap space that you can go make an aggressive trade if that's what you want to do. All the potential in the world still here with this team. It's got to come together. A lot of parts and pieces have got to coalesce for this thing to just fully hit and click, but it might happen this year. So I hope you got the faith. I hope you got the hope. I hope you're not just thinking it's just a pass-off year and you're looking at Vegas and saying 7.5 wins, they never get it wrong. Well, guess what? They got it wrong last year, and they get it wrong quite a bit when it comes to your Seattle Seahawks. So you better keep that faith. You better have some high hopes this year. You've been waiting 10 long years for this team to show you something else. I think they just might. So you keep the faith, my fellow Seahawks fans, and hope for a great, big, beautiful season from your Seattle Seahawks in 2025, because you might just get it. And don't you dare ever forget. Go Hawks.